Welcome to Sis Flicks, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sis Flicks are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Are you ready to cover the last 2 episodes of Bridgerton Season 3?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Sisters, welcome to our last installment of Springerton at Sis Flicks. Thank you for joining us again for our last Bridgerton recap. For now, I mean, it seems like it's going to be another 2 years before we have to recap Bridgerton again, unfortunately.
We have gotten a couple of requests to do Queen Charlotte.
Ooh, I love that.
So that is something to think about.
Yes, I would love to do Queen Charlotte next season. That would be great. Today, we are covering the last 2 episodes of Bridgerton Season 3.
Let's go.
So both these episodes were directed by Tom Verica. The writing credits for episodes 7 and 8 go to Gitica Lizardi and Danielle Robinson, respectively. We enter the last quarter of this season in turmoil and distress. The show decided to leave a ginormous reveal for its penultimate episode of the season. And at this point, when you're watching in real time, you are reeling. You need to know what's going to happen. You need to know how it's all going to be resolved. And the answer is frustratingly, overwhelmingly, and underwhelmingly, all in one, all at the same time. This is going to be another long one. So much happens, and there's so much to break down. So let's get into it. Nadhya, are you ready?
Paola, as ready as I will ever be.
Oh, yeah. So we enter the episode, Joining of Hands, right at the moment when Colin discovered Penelope as Lady Whistledown. And if you ask me, for the ultimate drama, can you imagine if this would have been the cliffhanger after part 1? And then you have to wait 4 weeks to see what Colin says. We could have been in turmoil for months in preparation for the rest of the turmoil that we've been through.
They could have hired you, yo.
But instead, we all spent 4 weeks happily oblivious in horny jail, completely unprepared for the hurt that we were going to experience in the next couple of episodes. This man discovers that the woman he loves, his best friend, is the same woman who has been responsible for the chaos and the scandal he and his family has been put through in the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. He says to her, "And to think I ran after you because I was worried about you." Ugh.
Yikes.
Watching Colin in this scene broke my heart. But one thing I will point out, though, this man chased a carriage by foot to catch up with this woman when he thought Devlin proposed to her. And you're telling me that he thought she was abducted and decided to just follow the carriage?
He thought she had been abducted?
He goes, "I thought your carriage driver was abducting you."
That's so dramatic. That's so dramatic.
The Colin that we know would have stopped that carriage if he genuinely thought that she was in danger.
Maybe he just needed to think that her driver was going to propose to her.
He was like, "Let me see how this plays out."
Yeah.
Okay, writers. Okay. Anyway, through angry tears, he points out, "All of the lies you have told me, all of the things you have written about me and my family, I knew something was wrong and I blamed myself as if I was undeserving of your love."
Aw.
Oof.
I mean, I get that, and I've fucking been there, and it sucks ass.
It was the angry cry. The angry cry as he shakes to get his words out. Like, as the audience, you're watching this and you're heartbroken. Nadhya, at this point, do you feel that Colin needed to suffer more?
Bitch. Maybe.
Maybe a little bit more. He needed to be more sad. But he feels lied to. He feels betrayed. And he feels all the frustration that it's put his family through, right? And especially his sisters. And this line that he says, I blame myself as if I was undeserving of your love. To me, that stood out because it continues to make it clear that, one, he feels he has to deserve love from others, right? Either by way of being worthy / important, or by way of being serviceable, right? We've seen that through Colin, through his character development since season 1. He doesn't require that of others, but he feels that people's love for him is conditional. And with that said, he is also implying that he had been blaming himself this whole time for not feeling like he's enough for her, right? All the stress that she's been going through since the engagement, he has been internalizing that as, oh, it's me. It's because I'm not good enough. That's why she's stressed. She might be regretting this.
And in fairness to Colin, I too would internalize that.
And especially because she's not really communicating what's going on. I would go even further and say he has been internalizing those insecurities and feelings of like not being worthy or not being enough since the beginning of the season. Like, if we remember first, right, let's all remember the famous vest from Paris, how he tried to impress her with his trip to Paris and his Parisian vest.
Yikes.
She gave him no play. Then at the first ball, he tries to tell her how much he missed her and how much he missed her letters. No play again. Good night, Mr. Bridgerton. After that, our guy's just like, yo, tell me what I have to do to win back your friendship. Like, how do I deserve your love again, quote unquote? So what does he do? He becomes serviceable. How can I help you? Oh, I'll help you find a husband. I'll help you find confidence. And he does that with her. And that's fun. And you see him enjoying that time. You start seeing him see other guys talking to her. And it's like, ooh, I don't like how that feels. Then they kiss. A kiss that she says doesn't have to mean anything, but ends up meaning everything. To then her telling him, oh, sorry about that kiss. It's never happening again. And oh, by the way, we're not continuing with these lessons. The only way he felt he was being serviceable to her, to deserve her time, to deserve her affection. And then Devlin comes in the picture. For him, it turns into, is Devlin more worthy of her than I am? And you kind of see him grappling with that while he's like glaring at them in the ballrooms, and how he goes to the bro lords.
The bro lords sound like a group of Reddit moderators. The bro lords.
The bro lords. You know, and he starts to ask him, what's this guy about? What does he do? Because he sees him as like, is he more worthy of her than I am? You know, and I think he concludes that no, he's not, because he's going to leave her and she's not going to be happy with him. She's going to be happy with me until she finally reciprocates, right? And then we get the carriage scene. When you think of this timeline specifically, those were all rejections and insecurities that he was contending with up until the day of the carriage, which was what? 24 hours before he confessed his love to her and they consummated their relationship, which was what? Only maybe 3 weeks before this instance right now. So he has not in any way dealt with those insecurities. This man set out to be a hero that night and instead uncovered that the object of his affections has been leading a double life and done it behind his back. And what does he say, babies? He tells her he could never forgive her. And in his anger, he leaves her standing there. Just her and the consequences of her actions. And watching it in real time, I felt like, no, Colin wouldn't just leave her standing there in the middle of the night.
Right.
And then I realized this bitch took the Featherington carriage with the Featherington footmen. Like, wait, what? Since when? Right? Because my assumption has always been that she goes in the paid coach. What you're supposed to take out of this is that in the desperation to get her pamphlet out, right?
Se le cuidó.
She forgot she needed to remain anonymous. It needed to happen in a rush, right? So she went in the Featherington carriage, or, you know, her cloak just hid everything, I guess. Wild choice, Penelope. So technically, he didn't leave her there by herself. She had her footman and her carriage, so she was going to get home just fine. So here we are at the start of the second to last episode of the season when Colin finds all of this out. Bridgerton title card is back with the poor Edmund Bridgerton tree of life being destroyed.
Yeah, that
by
thing
a
is
storm.
getting beat up.
Oh, And the next morning, we get a shot of Colin in bed, almost identical to the shot we get of him in season 1 after Lady Whistledown exposes Marina. And I thought that was a funny callback because it's almost an identical shot. Except that in the shot of season 1, he's dressed and laying over the sheets. Here, he's fully disheveled, tossing and turning in his sheets. This man didn't sleep. I think one was showing you the superficiality of one relationship versus this relationship where he's fully immersed and truly hurting. Mm-hmm. All the while, Cressida's Timu Lady Whistledown starts circulating.
Not Temu.
The pettiest writing to ever exist, spreading all types of misinformation, questioning the legitimacy of the Bridgerton family. But you know what? In this, I was actually proud of the Ton because they dismissed that shit right away, immediately realizing it was trash. They started reading that and were like, what the fuck is this? No, this is not what I paid for.
I just love the idea of like random members of the Ton being like very discerning readers. Like right. Being like, what the fuck is this garbage? This is not what I want. Yeah, this fake ass,
fake news,
counterfeit AI, Lady Whistledown, ChatGPT bullshit. Like, where's the good? Where's the real stuff?
In the nick of time, Penelope's new, authentic, 100% real Whistledown.
100% organic, non-GMO. Delivered to the Ton.
Yup, starts to circulate. And everyone, especially Violet Bridgerton, breathes a sigh of relief. Cressida, who had taken her full issue to the Queen, right, as her proof, hey, here's my proof, is immediately dismissed as the Queen reads Penelope's version. Imitated, but never replicated.
Bars.
And she writes, gossip as I might, I cannot tolerate a lie. And staying true to what she said to Eloise at the Mondrick ball, where she said, I should have been giving a voice to the voiceless. She mentions in this issue a man who was duped by another man who refused to pay his debts, a maid that got fired for requesting a day off, and a wife whose husband has been abusive. So, okay, maybe this is the turn that Lady Whistledown will take in season 4, right? She'll be reporting news, things that are happening, as opposed to...
She'll be reporting on all the gossip from About the Many Lands.
But what I mean is she might be talking about things that affect people as opposed to just
exposing bitches.
Exposing people's like private matters and shit just to like throw shade. And she ends with, the true Lady Whistledown is always paying attention. Even though she's been home for the most part, distracted by her fiance and planning her wedding, she has still found the time to eavesdrop and find gossip.
Penelope is working, okay?
Yo, this bitch might as well be Varys in King's Landing. She is the master of whispers, okay?
Because that is for 4 people.
And not including you. You know what? Again, she is the master of whispers. She knows all, whether she was there or not. Now, with Cressida Cowper discredited, the Featheringtons go out on a promenade so Portia can gloat about her daughter's engagement without anything to distract from the upcoming wedding. That is that week, in less than 7 days from the moment that her fiance found her as Lady Whistledown. And even the Featherington sisters seem to be anticipating this wedding with some positivity, right? Like they're nicer to each other. Even Philippa is surprised at like how nice Prudence is. And on this promenade, Penelope spots Eloise and she walks over to her, and Eloise immediately goes into praising her, right, for discrediting Cressida. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm so glad you're printing again. But Penelope has to bring her down a notch and let her know that Colin has found out and she does not know what to do. And after asking how he's taking it, Eloise decides that she does not want to be involved. She does not want to be involved. She threw shit at the fan. It hit the fan. And now that the shit's everywhere, she doesn't want to be involved. This bitch, who made her involvement very clear from the jump, talked shit about them at the ball, sabotaging Colin and Penelope's friendship out in the open. Then she was fine with being in the middle of it when it was to berate Penelope over their engagement. When she herself fucked shit up, it very briefly became, what are we gonna do?
Oh, we French now?
And now that Penelope needs some insight and some advice, she doesn't want to get involved. Nadhya, how do you feel about your twin?
Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm not insulted. Claudia Jesse's very beautiful, but I see what you're doing and it was fucked up. You know I like Eloise. And in fairness to her, she's supposed to be like 18 or 19 or some shit like that. I will openly say, when I was 19, I was a demon straight from the mouth of hell, okay? Like, I was horrible, horrific, awful. I was even worse at 17. Only recently, with the advent of modern therapy, have I improved. So as much as she sucks this season, like, I still find her relatable, but she's the villain. You get what I'm saying? Queen Charlotte's a kind of villain. Cressida is a different kind of villain. They're more overt. Eloise is a fucking villain. She's just covert. In the other seasons, she feels all of this kind of like righteous indignation about the state of women and the plight of poor people for 5 minutes while she was really into Theo Sharp in season 2. All of those things are valid, but she's so self-centered. It's hard to root for her this season. In the other seasons, it was kind of like, okay, I can kind of cut her a break because I know she's supposed to be so young. And now it's like, I've seen you be this way for 2 seasons already. Yeah. And now you're like really wearing on my nerves.
No, and she's supposed to be the same exact age as Penelope, who we're putting a lot of responsibility on.
Penelope seems so much older.
Right. She seems a bit more mature. She does.
Yeah.
She's the worst type of villain. She's the villain who thinks
they're in the right. She's Thanos. She's Thanos. She's like, this is for the greater good.
She is the worst kind. She thinks she's righteous when really she's one of the villains of season 3, I would say. Anyway, so now that Penelope needs some insight and advice on her brother, now she does not want to be involved. But it's too late, baby, because guess what? Colin fucking put 2 and 2 together, and that equaled Penelope and Eloise leaving the private room at the Mondrian ball right before he followed Penelope to the printer's that night. And so when Eloise gets home that afternoon, they have it out. Colin blames her for not telling him about Penelope being whistled down, and she in turn blames him for not telling her about his feelings for Penelope before showing up engaged.
I mean, he doesn't have to check with you. I guess I kind of understand that a bit more because it's her best friend.
Well, her ex-best friend, and he knows that they were having a tiff, and she didn't even want her in the house, remember?
Yeah, that was wild.
And then he brings her in as his fiance, so
she gonna be in the house.
He didn't have time. He didn't even think quick on his feet before she got engaged to Doubling, and he had to put in the work, so he didn't have time to tell Eloise. But she opens up about feeling brokenhearted. And this part I thought was very sweet and I could understand. She says, I didn't want to break your heart as well. I didn't want you to feel the way I felt last year. I wanted to tell you, I wanted her to tell you, but then I figured, why break your heart? Then she ends up trying to defend Penelope by saying, oh, but she hasn't written anything bad this year. But then he reminds her, well, how about the things she wrote about me at the beginning of the season? What Eloise answers is, oh, yeah, that's right. That wasn't so good. And I'm like, hold on. This is the perfect opportunity to say, well, she kind of said what she said because you were acting like an idiot. And she was right. You weren't being yourself. When Eloise asks him if he thinks he can forgive Penelope, he only answers with, I think you should consider yourself uncommonly lucky that you have never been in love. I think what this says to me, right, reading between the lines, is that for him, as somebody in love the way he is with Penelope, whether to forgive her or not is not the problem. Forgiveness is just part of a love that big. The problem is how to move forward when you're hurt, when you feel betrayed, because forgiveness or not, that pain of betrayal doesn't just go away. Like, you can forgive this person. You can hash it out. That feeling, though, that ache doesn't just go away. It only fades with time, right? It subsides. Time that they do not have because their wedding is that week. So it's almost like you just have to push it to the side to be able to get through what you need to get through. And speaking of forgiveness, though, at no point has she even really apologized. Not that she needs to apologize for being Lady Whistledown. She doesn't need to apologize for that. But for lying, maybe explain yourself a little bit, right? Like, oh, well, this is what I was thinking when I wrote this. Well, as I'm watching this, I'm like, girl, what are you doing promenading? Go get your man. Send them a letter. A long text?
Not a long text.
This man went to go see you in the middle of the night when he thought you were hurt over rumors that Lady Whistledown had written about you. He went to go check up on you to see how you were doing. Middle of the night, broke the rules,
Check up
paid
on
somebody
us.
off. You know, and she seems to be giving him space. That seems to be the approach that she takes, right? To give him space. But, you know, didn't you feel like, when is she going to show up? When is she going to... I felt like she was absent for too long between him discovering Lady Whistledown and their next meeting.
Maybe it was the kind of thing where it's like, well, is he going to call off the engagement, right? Like, you're avoiding it because you want to delay the bad thing that you feel like is absolutely going to happen as long as fucking possible.
Right? But don't you want to know that sooner than later?
Dude, different people handle things differently.
So the next time we see them together, it's within this week still, when they have to meet the mamas to tour where their wedding reception is going to be held. And the mamas, they question each other on why they haven't spent any time together before their wedding. Because the two could not be further apart. There could not be any more tension in the room. You can quite literally feel the tension through the screen while you're watching this. Colin will not even look at Penelope.
Oh, yeah. And both the mamas are like, what's going on?
They looked like they were going to beat around the bush. But then I think Violet's the one that comes out with it. Like, shouldn't they be happy? Shouldn't they want to spend together? And Portia's like, oh, my God. Right? Colin can't even look at Penelope. And when she asks if he's going to call out the wedding, he answers with, I am a man of honor and we were intimate. However, he was not too honorable to suggest that she possibly planned it to entrap him.
Yikes.
Excuse me? The fucking audacity. Because the way I would have walked out of there like, oh, tato. Adios, nos vemos.
Dog, how many times have I mentioned this on this podcast? You know the unique power that you and I have? Pride. A lot of it. So much of it.
Consider this wedding called the fuck off, sir.
It's not even just regular pride. It's patrilineal Latin American pride.
Because what we're not going to do is sully my name. I already did that on my own.
Can't.
I don't need you to do that. But let's keep in mind, these are Portia's words that he is spitting back at her. These are the words Portia was telling her when he walked in and told Portia off.
And those, the words of a gentleman. Sorry.
Truly. These are Portia's words that he's spitting back at her. This is what she was yelling at Penelope when he swooped in and told Portia off and defended Penelope against those very words. Mm-hmm. He used those very words, spit them back at her because it's his petty attempt to pass along what he feels is a fraction of the pain that he's feeling at that moment. So, what can they expect of their marriage is what she asks. And here's where we start to see some gray area in Colin's anger, because his response to her is, well, that depends. Are you going to stop publishing?
Not ideal.
So this tells us he has compartmentalized this anger to project on who she is as Lady Whistledown. If she stops publishing, he can forgive her for lying and have the Penelope that he knows, the Penelope he fell in love with, he can have her back. If he can compartmentalize this other version of her that he's not okay with for one reason or the other, right? Without having to reconcile that Lady Whistledown and Penelope are the same person. He just wants Penelope as he's known her. Minus this extra stuff you're doing, Penelope. If you're not doing that, I can imagine forgiving you for everything else. In that depends, are you going to stop publishing? I'm like, oh, what's the problem with me publishing? Making amends, however, on the other side of Mayfair is Benedict and Tilly. She invites him over to explain her relationship with Mr. Paul Suarez. She explains that they have a casual relationship, just like hers and Benedict's, but with the additional detail that Mr. Suarez is bisexual and they occasionally like a party of three. Benedict isn't a stranger to sexual liberation. He just has never been tempted by a man before, right? To which Tilly asks, are you tempted by every woman you meet? Good point, Tilly. She goes on to say, a feeling between two people, in this case three, whatever their sex, is the most natural thing in the world. And she leaves him to ponder that while adding, my staff are very discreet. Ooh, okay. Also pondering some exploration in this episode is Violet and Marcus. He calls on her. Oh, Violet with a collar. I love it. And Lord Anderson, he's such a handsome man. I could watch him just talk. Like, can he have a monologue? I don't know what he's going to say, but just have him talk. And Lord Anderson goes right ahead and asks, do you think perhaps the two of us can explore something together? Ooh, Violet. And she seems to explore him eating a cookie. Did you peep that?
I did. I thought that was pretty funny.
All right, Violet. But Violet, as a mother first, makes it clear that her children's affairs need to be in order before she can feel open to exploring any type of relationship. And then she reminds him, hey, you kind of got some shit going on too that you need to go take care of with your sister. So she's like, you guys gotta figure out your shit. I'm not getting involved between the two of you, right? Mm-hmm. And I love seeing adults handle shit clearly. And honestly, it's refreshing to watch them in this interaction. Like, in comparison to like all the bullshit you see going on this season. Love it. So this pushes him to go talk to his sister about what really happened the night before her wedding. And here is where you find out she's been mad at a 10-year-old for decades. He confesses that he was scared for her safety, right? Out in the world by herself, understanding that as a 10-year-old. And he thought that he was protecting her by telling their father that she was trying to escape. Hey, she's escaping. She's going out into the world by herself. And then he tells her that he's both been intimidated by her and inspired by the person that she's become.
Can I just say, this plot point is so fucking stupid.
It really was. Nothing happened.
It's not to undermine, like, they're building out Lady Danbury's backstory more. There's a lot of trauma. There was, like, you know, sexism in her family. And, like, I'm not undercutting that because I like that kind of shit. Like, if they fumble Arsema Thomas as, like, a Lady Danbury fucking spinoff, like, entire show about Lady Danbury, like, that casting was so fucking elite.
I loved it.
She was incredible. I love the building up of Lady Danbury's story. Doing it in this way was fucking dumb. What are we doing? Her brother comes to town. She's mad about it. You don't understand why. Because she's mad before he even starts liking Violet. But then she's mad the whole time. And then it's like, when you were a kid, you said something to our parents and I got married. And it's like, the child? Like, because Lady Danbury's not dumb. Of course, it's like she can be regretful, mournful, the lost life she could have had, right? Like having to spend her future with this like awful, horrific man. But like, she's too pragmatic to be like, it's because of a child.
Yeah, I think it was a little out of character for her to be this mad for this long.
Especially when you see how she treats Simon in season 1. He's a child.
Exactly. He was probably just a little bit younger by the time she came around and tried to help him through the things he was going through and being abandoned by his father and all of that. Like you said, I understand adding this backstory. I respect it. I love learning more about Lady Danbury. I don't think it needed to drag out for this long. I even understand the trauma behind this, right? I think we were discussing this when we were discussing episode 5 and 6, where it was just such a traumatic experience for her that it embedded into her heart and mind. You know, she has nowhere else to project that hurt and anger over this trauma that she went through other than him. And trauma projects like that sometimes, right? That makes sense to me. So I can see that. It felt very anticlimactic. It could have been resolved quicker. It didn't have to drag out through a couple of episodes. I feel like this is a conversation they could have sat down and had
in like episode 3.
And we understand it. But it needed to be contrived because he couldn't court Violet yet.
It's like, could he have taken some of her money? You know what I mean?
But then that makes him a bad guy, and then you don't want him for Violet.
Lord Jesus.
You needed him to be a good guy.
What if they didn't beef at all? And then the conflict is only, I feel weird that you're going after my friend. What if that was the conflict?
Then that's the conflict.
Nadhya, then
right?
that makes too much fucking sense.
Right. But I think, again, I appreciate the backstory for Lady Danbury.
Yes.
So you could have had that backstory, resolve this a little bit sooner, and then the conflict is, why are you going after my friend? Because the whole time she's calling him a rake. You know, we're thinking it's because he's a hoe. No, he's a nice guy that had a bad upbringing and was a child when Agatha was young and going through her trauma. So, you know, she admits to being hard on him, but she also says, I've built this life. I have joy now, and I'm protective of that joy. And he's like, I'm here to be part of your joy. I'm not here to take away joy. He promises that any joy he is after, he deeply hopes she is a great part of. And that was that.
It was stupid.
Yeah, it dragged.
I was already annoyed by like a lot of stuff in season 3. Let's add it to the list.
When you heard this, you were like, wait, what?
The fuck?
Okay, Agatha. All right.
I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry to the listeners because my disdain for the culmination of this season is just going to become more apparent. And I'm so sorry. Genuinely.
Why are you apologizing?
Because I bet you it's going to get annoying. It's annoying me. I live with me. But it's going to be very annoying. So
this is why we're here. We're here to talk about this shit. We're here to love and hate.
God.
Love and hate, baby. Guys, now we have reached the night before the wedding. The boys are out on their stag night, right? The British bachelor party, drinking, and it is all pretty funny. I loved the interaction with the men this season. They're all just supportive of each other, and they try to help each other. There's so much positive masculinity, I feel, in these male relationships that the Bridgerton brothers have built. It's such a contrast to like what we saw between Anthony and the Duke in season 1 and what we saw in Anthony by himself through season 2. It's very refreshing to just see the guys hanging out and like laughing and giving each other advice.
It's one of the things that I was like,
it was really sweet.
The divergence from what I imagined men were like at that time is very welcome.
Yeah, for sure. So this evening in particular, Kilmartin is having trouble with convincing Violet of his love for Francesca, probably because he doesn't show much of it. And Benedict's advice is that he must do something foolish and bold to declare himself, right? A true romantic Bridgerton.
Benedict is so cute.
I'm excited for his season because I feel like we're going to see some unhinged behavior from Benedict. We're going to see plenty of the foolish and bold declarations from him. And I'm excited for that. Is it going to be in 2 years? Is it going to be in 4?
It's going to be in 10, I think.
We don't know. And adorably, all the men around the table are like, yeah, yep, that's what you have to do. Until he says, you know what? Throw rocks at her window. And then they're like, nope, nah, don't do that. It's Colin specifically who's like agreeing he's with him. Until he mentions the rocks at her window. And then he's like, no. And Kilmartin is like, okay, you know what? You have a point. I'll be bold. But first, I have to think about it. This man is precious. Protect him at all costs. Will Mondrich does protect him because he walks him out of the club because he's too drunk to walk on his own. And while Benedict and Colin are on their own, he notices that something's kind of off with Colin and asks him if he's all right. Colin has noticed that something's wrong with Benedict and responds with, are you all right? And Benedict's like, nope, you're right. We shouldn't talk about this, and calls it a night.
God damn.
But before he leaves, he kisses him on the head. And it's so cute. Colin stays behind because maybe he needs to listen to another bachata on his own. While Colin stayed at the bar listening to Llora Alma Mia by Joscar Sarante, Penelope decides to visit Madame de la Croix for some much needed girl talk the night before her wedding. She is about to be married to the man that she's loved her whole life, and now she feels guilty and unworthy due to her mistakes, while also feeling guilty and incomplete after letting go of her writing. Madame de la Croix is the only person in her life that can possibly understand her dilemma and point of view as a working woman. And as expected, she drops some gems. She pushes Penelope to take accountability for her mistakes and be true to the choices that she's made. You made these choices. Own them. Apologize for the shit you fucked up and move forward with the lessons you've learned. Mm-hmm. She also adds, there's no such thing as true love without first embracing your true self. So if you're feeling empty, if you don't do this, you're missing a part of you. Be true to that. Be honest about that. And once you embrace that, you can continue to embrace others, as in embrace your mans. And he can embrace you. Toast to that. And as Penelope exits the modiste and Colin exits the bar, they coincidentally bump into each other in the middle of the street. They're heading opposite directions when they live in the same direction. So
maybe Colin's going to the new house and Penelope's going to her Featherington house.
That can be possible. You know what, Nadhya? I am going to hold on to that because that's the only rational explanation. So, but he does end up going back to the Bridgerton house at the end of the night. But okay, we're going to ignore that. Colin sees Penelope and is immediately like, what are you doing here? And when she doesn't answer quickly enough, he says, you know what? Never mind. You're obviously in the middle of some secret shit. I don't even want to know. And continues to walk away. So wait, he was really going to leave her there
that was
walking?
Shitty.
Again, this felt out of character. In this case, there's no carriages around. She still's got to walk home in the middle of the night. You weren't going to walk her home? Come on now. He wasn't going to keep walking.
I don't know. He was real mad.
He was real mad, but we've seen him push through that to take care of her for the rest of the season. So I feel like the Colin we have come to learn about would have been like, why are you out here outside by yourself? He doesn't turn around until she questions his own nighttime activities. And he's like, the audacity. How dare you question me after everything you fucking done? And she finally takes this opportunity after talking to Madame Delacroix to take accountability for how she's hurt him. I'm sorry for the things that I've done. And I said, and she answers for writing about Eloise. And she even answers for writing about Marina, which low key, okay, I'm kind of tired of him bringing up his ex. Like, she's fine. She has a whole life and family. She's okay. It actually worked out better for her.
For everybody, actually.
It actually worked out better for everyone. Can we stop bringing her up, please? Anyway, he questions her respect for him. We're tapping into this guy who's been insecure and overthinking this shit for the past couple of days. He questions her for respecting him. And after she wasn't able to be truthful to his face, and after the stuff that she wrote earlier that season about him pretty much being a fraud of himself, right? Like pretending to be somebody he's not and not knowing himself. And what she tells him is everything we felt when we were watching the first episode of this season, which was we wanted to see the Colin that we all knew and loved. And she agrees that she should have told him how she felt instead of hiding behind Whistledown. But thanks to the confidence that he's helped her gain, she no longer feels she has to hide behind Whistledown. And here he goes again. He finds the opening and says, so you no longer need Whistledown anymore.
'Cause you have me. This is healthy.
Yes, now you have me. I have helped you find your confidence.
Women don't have dreams. They have husbands.
But also continuing to widen the separation of who Penelope is to him and who Lady Whistledown is to him. And then finally, he gives you a glimpse of what else is really bothering him when he mentioned that he's embarrassed that she has talked to him about his own writing in his journals while the whole time she's been a published writer. And this begs the question, if they were still friends and he finds out she's Whistledown, is he still embarrassed? If she was a man who's a writer and reads his writing, would he still be embarrassed? I would probably say no, because one of the problems here is that he's not feeling like the provider and protector in the relationship. It's about feeling inferior to your partner. And this is confirmed as soon as he felt this hurt to his pride, right? This embarrassment, like you could have been judging me the whole time. And she has to tell him, like, I meant everything I said about your writing. He defaults back to Hero Colin and starts questioning her safety. And when she responds with, I can take care of myself, then he yells, then what good am I to you?
We can be besties. We can hang out and kiss.
But in the dynamics of a relationship,
we can be besties. We can hang out and kiss. God, he makes life so hard.
If she has this prolific career as a writer and she can take care of herself. How can he be good for her? Is his thought process. What can I do for you? How can I deserve you if you're this person? And instead of answering, she yells back, I love you. And then this seems to break through his anger, and he passionately kisses her up against the doorway. And he kisses her up against this doorway, fingers activated, and they have a really hot moment. It's such a good moment. Unfortunately, cut too short by some fucking random horse rider that's trotting along. And then he decides to put her on a coach.
Yeah, preserve what's left of her honor. Just kidding. None of it.
He puts her on a coach and is like, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so with the I see you tomorrow, he's confirming they're going to go ahead with the wedding, right? But then he puts her on the coach to then walk himself the rest of the way. They live across the street from each other.
You can't share that carriage, Paola. You never know what'll happen.
Or walk fucking home together. Continue to break down your shit before your wedding. To me, this scene made no sense. Not even that I didn't like it. I liked it. I mean, you get a glimpse of a passionate encounter, a glimpse of a reconnection, actually saying some of the shit that's bothering you. Love that shit. From a continuity standpoint, it felt weird. It just felt so random, them meeting in the middle of the street, in the middle of the night, and like they're heading opposite directions, but they live the same way. He's sending her out in a carriage when he's going the same way. Like, for how forced this scene felt, I feel like it should have been a stronger resolution and a reconnection. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can move forward together through their wedding and what's to come. But no, this scene just acted as kind of like a Band-Aid on a stab wound to get them through the wedding ceremony the next day. So Colin arrives home that evening, where he lives across the street from his fiance. And Kate and Anthony have been called as reinforcements by Violet, who has noticed that Colin and Penelope are at odds. Anthony brings in the dad energy. What's going on with you and Penelope?
He's so goofy.
Until he protests when Kate, trying to comfort Colin, says that their marriage is far from perfect and that marriage takes hard work, right? Which is all true and valid. He's like, what do you mean? Our marriage is not hard work.
You are wearisome tonight.
So this tells you who's doing the emotional labor in that relationship.
That man is head empty, follow wife.
Yes. Suddenly.
But I love that. I'm not gonna lie. I love that for him.
I do kind of love that for him. I do not love that for Kate.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because that shit is stressful.
It is. Ryan and I switch off when we decide to be head empty, follow spouse.
You guys take turns?
We alternate, yeah.
Yeah. Same. Poor Kate. She's got to do all the emotional pushing and pulling.
I just feel like they gave Jonathan Bailey, like, these are the vibes of the scene. Just, like, say whatever. Like, I feel like they were just like, I don't know, goof around. Because he's just so loose. Like, so much looser.
You know what? I really did love his dynamic this season. It was very light and fun. It was funny. He was part of the comic relief.
He was Jonathan Bailey.
So Kate, without knowing much information, suggests that he shouldn't let one mistake change the way he feels about Penelope. We do have to contend that it's not just one mistake, but she does have a point. Especially after so many years of friendship and love. She asks him, she poses the question, if whatever he has discovered negates the reason that he's cared for her for so many years, right? And his answer is no, it doesn't negate that. She is still the person that I love. She is still this person that I have had this friendship with and built this relationship with. So with that, he goes into his wedding the next day. And the first thing we see is Penelope getting ready in her room with her mother and her sister with the help of Varley and Ray. And I think Ray might have gone a little overboard with Penelope's wedding makeup, but she does look beautiful.
Do you mean Ray MUA on Instagram? You mean Ray
Honestly.
Wedding Day MUA? Because holy fuck. Also the nails.
But they look beautiful. Her nails
She looked
were
amazing.
gorgeous.
It was the most. Like, the makeup they were wearing this season, Paula and I were just talking about this off mic, was the most.
Yes,
it was the
it was
most. You could tell they were wearing makeup in season 1, but it was not this overt. Everybody looked too fresh to be human, but they looked fresh, not overly made up.
And I think her makeup evolved through the season. I feel like in the first half of the season, it felt a bit lighter. I loved her makeup in the first half of the season. She looked stunning. And then for some reason, it started getting heavier and heavier as the season progressed. Maybe there's some storytelling behind that, right? As she's maturing, as she's owning Lady Whistledown, she's getting bolder with her makeup. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I don't think Nicola needed that much heavy makeup on.
No, she really didn't.
And in terms of this scene, she didn't need all that. Like, the blush was a lot. It was distracting on her face because it was too high contrast. She's not that high contrast. And Ray got some lashes on the ton.
Everything's made of like lead and arsenic and she'll die in like a year and a half. But she looked amazing. They got the prep team from the Hunger Games.
You know, I can't even argue with that. She did look beautiful. The amount of makeup felt a bit distracting. Something I want to point out about this scene is we've been seeing her sisters be nicer, right? And treating her with a bit more respect. Still awkwardly, but they're trying. Here, in preparation for this wedding, they're all finally embracing some blue in their dresses as they join the Bridgerton family. A color that Portia criticized earlier in the season when they were at the Mondrian ball, when Portia's like, I hate that color, but it's winning on you. Even Philippa in the background is sifting through Penelope's books. And this stood out to me because remember in the first episode of the season, when Philippa claimed that she would get rid of all her dusty books as soon as she became the mother to the heir. So to see her in this scene, sifting through Penelope's book collection and actually grabbing one off of the shelf and skimming through it, I was like, oh, look at that growth. Look what Penelope's growth is doing to the Featheringtons. I love that for them. So at the church, the pews are full. We have tons of family and friends on both sides. Apparently, on the Featherington side, they have a whole side of what we assume are Irish relatives dressed in all green. A little nod to Nicola's heritage into the show. A classical rendition of Yellow by Coldplay begins to play. Y'all, I immediately got goosebumps. I had such a big Coldplay phase. Nadhya, do you remember my Coldplay phase?
Yes, I absolutely do.
I was really hoping for this song to make it into the season. It's one of my favorite Coldplay songs. Who doesn't love Yellow?
Yeah.
It's everybody's favorite Coldplay song, aside from The Scientist and Fix You. And the list goes on. But I was really hoping for this song to make it into the season because it's a song, when it comes to Penelope and to the Featheringtons, we've seen Penelope in her yellow dress since season 1, and we've seen the growth of that. So it feels so pollen coated, but also the song speaks about devotion and admiration, which I think is exactly what Penelope and Colin feel for each other throughout, regardless of the ebbs and flows of their relationship. I think there's always devotion and admiration from both their parts, even as friends and now lovers. When Penelope comes out, she's nervous, uncertain, but when she looks to Colin, he gives her such a sweet, reassuring nod and smile, letting her know he's there for her and everything is going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And I got teary-eyed just watching the reassurance, watching how even through all the hurt and the pain, like this love and support they have for one another is at the core of their relationship. To add to that, the moment he nods aligns with the part of the song that's meant to say, and you know I love you so. So I goosebumps. And even on the rewatch, this made me teary-eyed. Honestly, I was such a simp here. I was like, oh my God, this is so sweet. She's so beautiful. He's so beautiful. They're so beautiful. Her dress
was beautiful.
Her dress was beautiful.
Yeah.
Her dress is like the palest pink.
Stunning.
And it fit her stunning. The tulle train on the dress. I loved the train and how they fitted the train onto the dress. It accentuated her curves beautifully. Mm-hmm. And for this scene, Tom Verica didn't let anybody see Penelope until the moment she's walking down the aisle.
Oh, wow.
To be able to get everyone's genuine reaction of seeing her for the first time as a bride. So you get all these beautiful reactions. You get this emotional reaction from Eloise, who's in tears. You get an emotional reaction from Prudence, And even the reaction you get from Colin, he just takes this deep breath when he sees her. And it's just like, aw. They have this beautiful wedding. And at the end, when they kiss, their eyes linger on each other. Luke and Nicola did an amazing job portraying the tension, but also the love in this scene. And when they go to hold hands, their hands take a couple of seconds to find and fit into each other, representing how they as lovers took time to find and fit into each other's lives, and also representing how they are currently trying to find their way back to each other. I do wish they didn't use the sock gloves, though. They bothered me a little bit.
Why are you calling them the sock gloves?
That's what they look like, socks. They don't even have little fingers on them. They look like wrist socks.
Those socks have been requesting my smoke this entire season. The socks, the gloves. I fucking hate those gloves. Like, there's something about the way they make her hands look. And, like, she's got precious little hands that look, like, really, really soft. And then you got these fuck-ass gloves that aren't even gloves. They're just kind of, like, back of hand covers.
Back of hand covers.
They look like... they're thongs. They're glove thongs.
They only go on the thumb.
They only... The glove thong, the thong part is right here in the web between your thumb and pointer finger.
Thong. I could have done without the gloves. But aside from that, very beautiful, very beautiful. And also, I mean, I've seen a little parallel online where they do a parallel of the scene where they're holding hands to the scene in Emma when they're holding hands, because she also has fingerless lace gloves on. It's not the same. No es lo mismo ni es igual.
Huh.
So at the reception, Portia has gone all out on this Bridgerton budget.
This is so wild. It'll be the greatest wedding Mayfair's ever seen.
We even got a giant 3-tier wedding cake with swans on top. Remember the swans? We're bringing the swans back. Swans, right?
The swans.
They mate for life.
They sure
signifying
do.
True love.
They're really hostile towards people. They attack easily. Swans.
Oh, whistle
Swans.
down. Swans and whistle down. Parallel. Portia is beaming with pride and joy. And Prudence is actually genuinely congratulating Penelope. Who would have thunk it? And I'll just say it's nice to see the Featherington women experiencing joy for one another. Coming into the second half, I'm liking their backstory when I see it take this turn, right? Not experiencing much joy is Eloise, resident hater of the ton, who is staying away from the crowd, stuffing her face and drinking champagne to stay distracted.
I mean, if you think I'm going to judge that, you're wrong. Been there.
Oh, I'm sure we've all been there somehow, some way.
I was going to say champagne and stuff in my face. Yeah.
What? I was doing that yesterday. We were doing that while watching this episode.
Yeah, we were. It was rosé and stuff your face, but I'll take it.
When Benedict finds her, he knows exactly what's wrong with her, of course, because he's our other intuitive brother. And we get a Benedict gem. Love is not finite.
I hate how that ties back into his story, but I love this sentiment. Like, this moment I thought was a really good one.
It was such a sweet moment. And Eloise got a little bit more dust in her eye and she has to leave because nobody can see her emotional. And he reminds her that each of her relationships are special. He's referring to her relationship with Penelope and her relationship with Colin. But his advice seemed to also resonate with him as well. Love is not finite. So he takes the note that Tilly left him out of his pocket that he apparently walks around with that says, "Let me explain." So this guy decides to leave in the middle of the reception to go explore how infinite love can be.
Nobody fucking notices Benedict is gone.
Nobody notices he's gone.
Jesus. That's not
yay.
even second oldest. That's giving firmly middle. Firmly middle child.
There's too many people at this wedding. Nobody can tell.
It's the grandest wedding Mayfair's ever seen.
Also about to bounce, Arcade and Anthony, who decide that they are taking a months-long trip to India before Kate gives birth. How fucking wild is that shit?
This interaction was very cute because it's like, oh, Anthony cares about Kate's culture and like wants her to feel surrounded by home as she has her baby. Like, that's so sweet.
I love the sentiment.
Yeah,
I really
that's good husbanding right there. But holy fucking shit, she'll be ready to burst by the time they make it to India. And you're just chilling, deciding that at your brother's wedding? Poor Benedict. He's going to be doing so much Viscounting. He's been doing so much Viscounting.
Honestly, though, and it's like, it's such a shift for Anthony.
Yeah.
Anthony, Mr. Duty, he's like, okay, well, Benedict's got this while I go to India for a couple of months. I mean, growth, trust, maybe.
I mean, Benedict did a good job while he was on his honeymoon, is what we've heard.
And he does mention that at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So that should have been a little bit of foreshadowing. I mean, and this is also the show preparing for Jonathan Bailey and Simone Ashley possibly not being able to be in season 4 that much. Right? This creates an excuse as to why they're not there. So anyway, the beautiful newlyweds who have been stealing glances at each other all morning have not gotten a chance to have a moment to themselves at their own reception. Per usual. Nadhya, how much time were you able to spend with Ryan at your wedding?
Good one. Who? Spend time with who?
With who? Where? I remember we were all over the place.
Absolutely.
We got to spend some time together maybe at the end of the night while everybody was gone.
Yeah, at the end of the night, and then I fell asleep. Yeah. God. At
one point, Penelope looks over to Colin and catches him already looking at her at the edge of the room.
Aw, gross.
So she walks over to him and asks him to dance with her. Scandalous.
Bitch, she's allowed.
Request,
that's her whole husband.
Apparently, this is a scandalous request because he's like, what do you mean? You want to dance? It's daylight outside. Apparently, dancing was for evening balls. But she reminds him, if we can dance in a church, why not here? A very cute way of matching his freak, I would say. And a classical rendition of Taylor Swift's You Belong With Me starts to play as they go onto the dance floor. This song was so spot on for them. Nadhya, while we're watching this, Nadhya and I were screaming at the top of our lungs. And they start their dance as everyone watches. And in the flash of a twirl, the crowd fades and it's just them. Oh my God, the way I lost my shit.
The Pride and Prejudice of it all.
I was like, they did the Pride and Prejudice. A direct homage to our favorite. I'm going to say because I think you agree with me. Our favorite period film dance sequence.
Absolutely.
Of all time. In Joe Wright's 2005 Pride and Prejudice. In the dance between Elizabeth and Darcy. Best dance sequence in any period film. Fight me. It was such a beautiful cut to have them going from dancing in a room full of people to just them two together in this dance. Mm-hmm. And a visual representation of Anthony's season 2, No One Else Matters. And Queen Charlotte's There's No One Here But Us. I was such a fan of this. Down to the song selection. Gave me goosebumps. I was fangirling for 24 hours over this cut. Nadhya was witness to this.
I was.
I went into a hyperfixation.
It's why it ended up on our Instagram.
It was the first edit that I made the very next day as soon as I could. And they let them have this dance to themselves for a full 40 seconds before other couples began to join in. John and Francesca joined the dance as a small, bold declaration from John. And while everyone dances, we catch up with Violet and Marcus, who feel they now have their affairs in order and can start to consider an attachment. And here, you are finally feeling hopeful for Penelope and Colin. When I saw this, it communicated to me, it's just them against the ton, them against the queen. It felt almost like a bit of a reconciliation, right? Like we can move past this. Mm-hmm. And as the dance ends with this beautiful shot of Colin caressing Penelope's cheek, that would have led to a chin grab and an almost kiss. But it was cut short by the arrival of the queen. The audacity. She interrupts the wedding breakfast and asks for everyone to leave except for the Bridgertons. Penelope thought she was slick and tries to head out.
I think she genuinely forgot she was a Bridgerton.
Colin had to remind her to come back. Hey, you're a Bridgerton now. And the only thing funnier than her trying to slip away is how Lady Danbury just stood there as an honorary Bridgerton. She's like, I'm not going anywhere.
And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. That's what I thought.
And again, nobody noticed that Benedict wasn't even there. The queen declares that someone amongst them has something to hide. And who comes forth? Francesca, to confess her love for John.
Francesca, because she is very bad at reading the room.
The queen is like, bitch, I don't give a shit. I'm here for Whistledown. Penelope looks like she's about to give a replay of episode 5 and fucking fall on the floor.
Yeah.
Apparently, the queen has figured out that it must be a Bridgerton since she gathered that Lady Whistledown published to defend the Bridgertons after Cressida's pamphlet. Can I express for a second how dumb this was?
Let's go.
Because, first of all, the pamphlets were distributed back to back.
At the same time. There
So
wasn't
how
an
can
answer to one.
How can one be in response of the other?
My dude, so fucking stupid.
And the way they wrote it into the show for it to make sense is it must be that Lady Whistledown anticipated that Cressida would write about the Bridgertons.
What?
And second of all, the second pamphlet says nothing about the Bridgertons. All it says is, even though I gossip, I cannot tolerate a lie.
It was, how can we make this more contrived?
I don't know what it was.
And it's like, I understand that there's no frame of reference in the book for the confrontation between Lady Whistledown / Penelope and the queen.
It wouldn't have mattered if there was a frame of reference, because it was a frame of reference for a bunch of other shit
that they did not follow.
Just didn't.
And you guys know I'm not out here writing for the fucking books. Like, you know that.
It's not about sticking to the book.
Know how dire the situation must be if I'm saying, well, if you go back to the Bridgerton books, Jesus.
In my head, I can think like 10 different ways that the queen could have gone.
Name one.
A woman to woman confrontation between Penelope and the queen. Mm-hmm. A battle of wits.
A la Lady Danbury and the Queen Mother that we saw in Queen Charlotte.
So how does the queen find out it's Penelope though?
I think it's legit Penelope just fucking telling her.
Honestly, I would have preferred Penelope just going to the queen. Details don't matter. So we're going to suspend our disbelief once more. Anywho, when nobody comes forward, the queen is like, okay, I tried. Bye. I'll try again tomorrow.
Cannot.
I'm just saying, for the ire that this woman has had for Lady Whistledown for the past 3 years, this just felt very anticlimactic.
Yeah. For the sheer quantity of smoke that the queen had for Lady Whistledown.
Girl, I would have liked to see a battle of wits between Penelope and the queen at some point, somehow, some way. And after she leaves, Colin walks out of the room pissed. This shit with the queen has just added more fuel to the fire. And he presses Penelope about ceasing to write her column. And you got this moment where she questions, like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should say something. I didn't know if I should have stayed quiet. I didn't want to, like, bring more bad attention to you guys. And he's like, no. I'm glad you didn't say anything. But hey, you understand why this is dangerous, right? Maybe you should stop.
What if you stopped emasculating me?
What if you stopped making me feel bad?
Try it.
Claiming that the queen will eventually find her. And that as long as she is Whistledown, the lie will hang over all of them. And Penelope is getting to a point where she's fucking done. She goes in, tells him, do you know what it's like to have nowhere in the world you can truly be yourself? No, you don't. You know why? You have the choice to be any kind of person you wish to be. This calls back to something he told her earlier in the season, that when he traveled, he could be anybody he wanted. He didn't have to be the Colin Bridgerton that the Ton knew. He could be himself. Mm-hmm. He is afforded this privilege that is not afforded to her and other women in her society. Mm-hmm. And she goes further and says the only choice women have is to conceal the parts of themselves that the world will not accept. I am Whistledown. And I loved this statement from her. This is the first time we hear her say this and own this out loud. Beautiful monologue by Nicola. The moment she said, I am Whistledown, and she said it with the presence that she said it, I was like, oh, yes, girl. Yes, you are. Personally, I maybe would have saved it for like the day after my wedding, so my new husband and I could like enjoy our wedding night.
Nah.
But still, I respect it.
Nah.
I respect it. This conversation to me should have one of two things. Should have happened the night before during their initial blowout argument on the street. Or I would have loved this declaration in front of the queen, in front of the Bridgerton family. It's just them in the room. The Ton doesn't have to know. That would have been as empowering, giving us a more satisfying interaction between Penelope Whistledown and the queen. Mm-hmm. This standoff. I feel like we've been expecting this standoff. And I would have loved to see that dynamic back and forth, face to face. But anyway, she is tired and she is no longer willing to conceal who she is and respect. Colin's response that he cannot accept this lets us know he's still not ready to reconcile her and Lady Whistledown as one and the same. For him to get through that day, he had to mentally compartmentalize Lady Whistledown away from Penelope. He was probably ready to move on that day by ignoring that Lady Whistledown even existed. He probably could have gone through the rest of his wedding, rest of his wedding night, rest of his relationship, honestly, ignoring the fact that Lady Whistledown ever existed if he can only have Penelope as he knows her before he found out. Which is why I think it was important for her to make that statement then and there, right? Pretty much like, as we continue with our marriage, this is what it is. I'm your wife. I am Whistledown. I think I would have loved to see this statement come with a plan of action or followed up with action, right? Maybe once she declares this to Colin, it moves her to a plan of action to come forward to the queen on a personal level, right? Since the queen's already onto her and her family, the Bridgerton family, and since her wedding night is already blown up anyway, but the show chose to dampen the queen's response to keep the tension within her and Colin's relationship. At this point, this declaration only served to rip off the temporary band-aid on this wound in their relationship. And for me, it was very frustrating to watch.
Yeah, you're not alone in that.
So like I said, I would have loved to see this same declaration in front of Colin, his family, and the queen, or to have it play out just as it did, and then it moves her to action, not just let it continue to hurt her relationship and herself in turn. So anyway, he decides he's going to sleep on the sofa and that they will not be consummating their marriage. So we leave the scene. We're upset for them. And I don't think you're meant to leave the scene mad at anyone. I think that you understand both of their points of view.
I think you can understand both of their points of view. It's just that I'm dissatisfied with the entire breakdown of the situation.
As the viewer, you're just sad for them and incredibly disappointed in the show. The only sweet thing to come of this situation, the only consolation that we get from this terrible situation is when Eloise ran to comfort Penelope as she sobs in her arms, calling back to the scene in season 1 where she runs to Eloise for comfort after writing about Marina. And as we know, they're kind of like the third love story in this season, because I think the second one is Penelope with herself and then Eloise and Penelope. Pollen, Penelope with herself, and Eloise with Penelope. Now, Penelope and Colin might not have been able to consummate their marriage, but that's okay because Benedict is about to get it in for everybody. He waited at Lady Tilly's house until her and Suarez got in that night. Remember when he left the wedding in the morning? It is now dark outside. This guy wanted this experience so bad. They walked in and he goes, "I've been thinking about your offer." "What offer, Benny? An offer from a gentleman?" Huh? Oh, ay coño. He kisses Tilly first and then kisses Suarez for the first time. And if you look at Tilly's face, she is so proud of her man. She's like, "Yes, baby. I knew you would come around." And now we're all about to come around. Cressida. What a segue. Not having a great time is Cressida. This whole episode, she has been locked up in her room after the whole Lady Whistledown scheme did not work. And according to her father, she has to remain in her room until her Aunt Joanna arrives in 2 weeks' time. Something I noticed about her room is her things are everywhere. There's dresses and things scattered all over the place. It struck me because I feel like you've never seen a messy room in this show. Everybody has a lady's maid that's picking up after them. We know she's packing, right? So it could be just that she's packing and everything's out. Makes sense. But also, does she have a lady's maid to help her? Maybe the lady's maid quit. Maybe they can't afford a lady's maid for her. Maybe she doesn't have one, right? Because I feel like if she did, you would see her helping her pack. Or for me also, it can also be a visual representation of the disorder in this home and a disorder in Cressida's life and mind. And we see Cressida confronting her mother about the things she chose to write about the Bridgertons. And we get a much clearer understanding that her mother is the reason why she is the way that she is. It seems that whenever we see hateful Cressida, that's her mother oozing out of her.
Yep.
More clearly, you start seeing her discomfort with that. She's uncomfortable with the fact that she is that way. Mm-hmm. Well, that evening, she decides to make an escape, and we see her asking a maid for help. We assume to get out of the house unnoticed, right? But she's in a glittery dress. And to try to collect money for her escape, she spends the night visiting every printer in town to try to collect any earnings from the pamphlet that they had released the week prior. Since her mother took care of the writing and the printing, she doesn't know which printer has any of those earnings. But also, wouldn't her mother have collected those earnings for her dowry, maybe, possibly?
Contrived.
Anyway, when she asks the printer about the Lady Whistledown pamphlets, he tells her they're not printed there, but that he used to work at the place where they did print. And then he's like, but I heard she's a redhead. So obviously, Cressida continues to fish for information, and this man just happily obliges.
That man sings like a fucking canary.
All the tea. And that's how we end on episode 7. So I have questions. So Cressida just finds out by asking around. So you're telling me the queen and her royal guard didn't do this? That's what we're supposed to believe. We're supposed to believe nobody else thought about asking the printers in town. This guy, right, that just spilled all the tea, did he not get the notice of the bounty? Did this guy had all of this information and he didn't pass go and collect 5,000 pounds? You know, maybe the show is trying to sell us on the narrative that nobody in high society thought about the working class. But that's bullshit, because that was a whole storyline in season 2.
Yep.
And the Theo Sharp situation, he almost lost his job because the Queen's crew were poking around for information. Yo, I think of all the story, this shit right here pissed me off. It felt so lazy. What do you mean Cressida just bumped into some dude at a print shop and he's like, oh yeah, Lady Whistledown, she's a redhead, and they print her pamphlet over there? What?
This is like,
so you're telling
this
me
is like anything for Lady Whistledown. And you're like, never have they interacted like that before.
Nadhya, please give me your thoughts, because y'all just heard out how I felt about it. Nadhya, what do you think about this turn of events?
It's stupid.
At the end of episode 7.
It's stupid. The things that they could have done with Cressida. Like, of course, I don't know how they're trying to plan to wind her into season 4, if they're trying to make her come back as a fucking supervillain or whatever, but like, this was such a stupid use of Cressida. It was such a stupid use of the Lady Whistledown subplot. It was a stupid use of the printer shops in the Ton. It was so dumb. It was very lazy. So you're telling me Eloise could have found this out by talking to one other different printer than Theo Sharp? I don't know.
Not that I want to be a stickler to the books, but in the books, she finds out through some wording in Whistledown's latest pamphlet. Something she heard Penelope say before makes it into Whistledown, and she remembers and puts 2 and 2 together. That makes more sense for Cressida's character.
They keep trying to sell Cressida to us as a dunce.
And it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because
why would she be a good bully if she was very stupid?
How are you a good bully? Because you can read into people's weaknesses and use them against them. Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned this in our recap of 5 and 6. We've seen her be an observer. Even in this season, she's been an observer to Eloise. She's called out Eloise for shit that Eloise was unaware of. And the show is trying to sell us on that she's not smart. She may not be book smart. She may not be a writer. But we have seen Cressida machinate and calculate and think on her feet and call people on their shit. So it would have been a lot more satisfying to see her figure it out, especially because you're in a season where everybody's trying to underestimate her one way or the other.
For her to prove, oh, look, I'm smart.
Right? Because Eloise kind of implied that in episode 5, where she's like, girl, I tried and I couldn't figure it out. You're not going to figure it out. Sure, she can ask around, But this storyline right here creates so many plot holes for you, because I know there's not one viewer out there, listeners. I know not one of you were out there listening to this and we're like, wait, hold on. So nobody did that before?
Literally.
It felt lazy. And I think this is what we keep going back to, right? As we're talking about this season, we're fans of the show. We're fans of our main characters.
Okay. I thought you were going to say the books, and I was like, I must protest.
Fans of the stories we're seeing play out, the people that are being represented. But we can't help to notice shit like this, and we got to talk about it. I don't want to be negative about the show, but this is stupid. And I can't, like, we're not gonna just pretend that this is not dumb. Anyway,
it is dumb.
So that's how episode 7 ends, and now we have just one more episode left to get all these storylines together and wrap this shit up. How are you supposed to go to sleep at 3 a.m. when now you only have one more episode left? You got to put the next one on. So let's go.
Getting into episode 8, titled Into the Light, the last episode of Bridgerton season 3. Guys, it's been a long fight, but we made it. We made it to the last round. We can do this. We can end this.
We got
Not
this.
like Bridgerton the show, but we can end this season. Because me and this season embroiled in a fist fight. We are tussling, me and this season.
Yeah, we got some things to break down, me and this season.
We have some conversations to have over coffee.
We have to unpack a couple of things. But let's come into the light. Let's bring everything out in the open in the last episode.
Opening shot of episode 8 is of a very traumatized looking Colin Bridgerton taking tea on the couch outside of his bedroom. He's fully dressed and everything looks very blue and very sad.
He is fully dressed without a smile.
Without a smile.
You're never fully dressed without a smile. You know, one thing I do love about this shot, because this is the first time we see them home after they're married and it's their home with their things in it. He's got tons of his travel stuff all over the place, specifically seashells everywhere. Man loves collecting a seashell, which also you do see seashells in coral and things like that in the Bridgerton house sporadically. So I wonder if that's like a thing for them. And I wonder why, because you never hear of them being at it shore.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you clocked that because I didn't. So Colin wakes up on this couch or maybe he's been awake all night. Yeah, he looks like ass. Penelope walks out of the bedroom directly behind him and they're avoiding each other. And this is annoying as fuck. He's avoiding her and she's giving him space because she feels guilty.
You know what? I wouldn't even say that he's avoiding her, right? Because he stayed there until she walked out of the room. And then that's when he said, have a good day. I'm out, right? So it's pretty much like he was up and dressed. He could have just left before she got up if he truly wanted to avoid her. But it's almost like he's going to make sure she's good. You're good. You saw me. I saw you. Now I'm going to head out for the day. Oh, and by the way, I'm still mad. In case you thought you were going to wake up and everything was going to be okay. No, it's not.
Penelope says good morning and asks how he slept. He responds fitfully and decides that he's going to Bridgerton house to have breakfast and tea in order to avoid Penelope, who is wearing like a very cool dressing gown that has puff sleeves on it. She looks like really good for someone who like just woke up from a night of not sleeping next to her husband. Everything's very blue, so you're supposed to be sad.
But it's also their color.
But it's like sad blue because it's not like, oh, it's blue, but it's also sunny outside. It's like gloomy looking. And we learned that Penelope's expecting Lady Featherington to visit. Colin, it's like he's cutting out because he can go to Bridgerton house, not be near Penelope, and also not be near Lady Featherington. So he's like, double whammy. We're good to go.
I'm going to give you guys some privacy.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like you really need to talk. And it's like, I don't know about that. So she's expecting Lady Featherington. Before she's able to fully change into like her day dress, a maid comes over and tells her, hey, you have a guest waiting in the sitting room. And Penelope's like, great, get her some tea. I'll be right out. I'm just getting ready. She is kind of like harried and rushed and steps into the sitting room while looking down. She's like tying a bow or something. She's not paying attention to who's in front of her because she assumes it's her mother and says like, oh, you know, hey, mama, whatever. Nope. It's Cressida fucking Cowper, also known as Funhouse Mirror Effie Trinket, Regency era Hunger Games icon, Met Gala red carpet queen. Cressida fucking Cowper is wearing the most insane fucking fit I've ever seen in my life. Bright orange puffy sleeves. The costumes this season lost me. Like, Penelope's costumes are stunning, even though they're not contemporaneous. Fine, it's a fantasy land. Cressida and her mother's costumes, they make me violent.
They really went with the, okay, this is a fantasy with
Yes.
the costumes for them. But in this scene, this isn't her craziest costumes. Like, I've seen
I
her
know
in
it's
worse
not.
shit.
I know it's not, but something that you called out when we were discussing the last episode, orange and blue, complementary colors, right?
Yeah.
She's wearing orange. She's in this very blue house.
Yeah.
And Penelope's also wearing blue. Cressida Cowper's there. It's not a social call. She's not there to make friends. She's found out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown by doing what? Asking some poor people. And Cressida demands that Penelope pay her double the amount of the Queen's reward. So double 5,000 pounds. What does that make, ladies? 10,000 pounds in order to keep Penelope's secret. 10,000 pounds in 1815 had the equivalent purchasing power of 1.1 million pounds in the year of our Lord 2024.
That's double.
What Bingley makes in a year.
Yes, that's what I think you.
5,000 a year. 10,000 a year.
That is as much as Darcy makes in a year, guys. So think about that.
Country
shit.
gentleman owns the miserable half of Derbyshire.
That's quite a large bag.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Also, crazy Cressida Cowper with this shit.
It's like, give me $1 million or I'm going to tell the ton that you were Lady Whistle. I'm like, bitch.
I'd be like, tell him. A smooth $1 million? Tell him. No, I'm not paying you shit. Fuck. Oh my God. That's so fucking ridiculous. In the midst of this, Cressida is mid-blackmail. Lady Featherington arrives and is like, what the fuck is going on? And Cressida is like, oh, hey, Penelope doesn't think that anybody's going to believe that she's Lady Whistledown, but I'm going to spit some facts at you. You know how she always disappears during balls and how she's always creeping around the edges of the ballroom. She's never on the dance floor and she like listens to everything. And she's always up in her room writing a lot. And there's always like a lot of ink on her hands. I don't know, think about whether or not she's Lady Whistledown, toodles, and like leaves them in the dust as the gears are turning in Lady Featherington's mind.
Oof.
Cressida, you fucking bitch.
Portia starts putting all those pieces together.
And is like instantly furious with Penelope for, quote, sowing the seeds of their family's ruin right under her roof. Lady Featherington insists that Penelope should not tell Colin about the blackmail. And Penelope's like, fuck that, dude. I'm tired of lying. Lies are kind of what got me into this fucking situation in the first place. I'm tired. We cut from there to Lady Danbury and Queen Charlotte playing chess on the most gorgeous chess set I've ever seen in my life.
Honestly.
Oh, the most gorgeous marble chessboard, and like the figurines are little metallic. It's like, it's very, very cool. And as they're playing, very backlit in this incredible room, Lady Danbury mentions that Queen Charlotte has been tossing around, quote, many accusations recently, unquote, namely the show that she made at Penelope Featherington and Colin Bridgerton's wedding, accusing the Bridgertons of being Lady Whistledown. Just as a whole, just all of them. Oh, one of you. It's like fucking Agatha Christie, like, novel. They all do one stab. They each write one pamphlet. So Queen Charlotte comments, yeah, I mean, the Bridgertons are such favorites of yours, of Lady Danbury's. I mean, case in point, she stays in the fucking room when Queen Charlotte's like, everyone who's not a Bridgerton, scram. I didn't have a lot of patience for this scene because I found it to be a very convoluted metaphor about playing games and games ending early.
I actually loved it. I thought it was so clever of Lady Danbury to communicate to the Queen in this way. I mean, and this is always how she kind of has to communicate to the Queen. It's always kind of covert. And like she's always suggesting things so the Queen thinks the things are her idea. So she comes to these conclusions on her own. And so she's always playing her. She's kind of a puppeteer in a way. First of all, what we've been saying about Lady Danbury from the jump, like she's the one that manages what's going on here. They make you think it's the Queen. The Queen thinks it's the Queen. No, Lady Danbury manages her in a way. And we saw that a lot more in this season. And so just the metaphor behind like she's playing chess with the Queen. at all times. She's maneuvering her. By moving her pieces, she makes her move her pieces the way she wants to. I thought it was a great metaphor. I did enjoy this scene. I was like, oh, that felt very cool. And the visual representation of it.
I like things better when you explain them to me. So that's why we have a podcast. Because watching that scene, I was like, I'm so annoyed. Because, and maybe this could be me being like a dummy, I understood what they were getting at with regard to like chess, the game, Lady Whistledown, don't be too hasty, whatever. But it annoyed me because I was like, either make at least one straightforward comment or like, why am I watching this scene?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a product of just the show in general this season, just like feeding you bits of information. Like everything was just a lot at the same time. It was like little bits of a lot of different things at the same time, and it felt overwhelming. So I can see you being to this point, being like, can somebody get to the fucking point, right?
That's exactly.
But that's never how she's communicated with the queen. It's always had to be all of these innuendos and things between them. That's what we've always enjoyed since season 1, to see how they communicate without really saying what they need to say, but it gets through. I did enjoy that particular scene.
Obviously, as we kind of mentioned, this is all kind of a metaphor for dissuading Queen Charlotte from being too severe on Lady Whistledown when she's eventually found and claimed for her bounty. The queen kind of seems affected by Lady Danbury's persuasion. Like, we see her kind of stop and like think a little harder, and Brimsley is behind her. Brimsley e otro. That it's not that he controls anything. Those gears in his brain are always turning behind Queen Charlotte. We see him kind of like smirking at Lady Danbury. So you're like, there's a collaboration afoot. And from there, we cut to a promenade with the Finches and Dankworths. So Prudence, what's the other one's name?
Philippa.
God, I was going to say Prunella. Prudence and Philippa are lamenting how Penelope is taking up all the attention, even though they're both pregnant. And they're trying to plot how they can command more attention from the Ton before they're forced into seclusion due to being very pregnant and eventually when they have their babies. So we hear, quote, once women start showing, they're expected to retreat from society. In trying to scheme on how to gain more attention, stealing it from Penelope, hopefully, the two sisters decide that they will throw a joint ball, no expense spared, with the theme of purple and orange, crystal, gold, and bugs.
Yes, ma'am.
What? It's a ball thrown by children, I think.
It feels very Featherington.
In that it's gaudy and tacky. And their husbands are behind them like, oh, fuck.
They're trying to do the math in their head. Like, what? How much is this going to be? I never noticed that I'd never seen a pregnant woman in the Ton.
In the Ton?
I did not notice that shit until they said it. And they were like, have you ever seen a pregnant woman in the Ton? You have to go hide and be away from society while you're pregnant. I was like, oh, shit.
And that's really crazy.
It's fucking nuts.
Like, I find that really wild. Especially with how much they're expected to have children, like, right after they get married. And then you kind of have as many as you can.
That means you're just not out in society as you're mothering young children. No, you're not.
For, like, a decade.
Wild.
From this promenade scene, we cut to Gunter's ice cream shop. We've been here before. There's no Duke making out with an ice cream spoon at this part, and I am sorry in advance.
That's unfortunate.
So we are at the ice cream shop with Lady Bridgerton, Francesca, and John Sterling. They are out in public despite the Queen's accusations that Lady Whistledown is among the Bridgertons and that she's now aware of Francesca's engagement to John Sterling, the one she famously doesn't fucking care about. They're kind of discussing planning their wedding with Violet, and they tell her that they intend to apply for a special license so that they can have a small wedding at the Bridgerton house, immediately followed by the long trip to their new home, John Sterling's primary estate in Scotland near Glasgow. Wild far from where they live.
She wants
According to Lady Bridgerton, it's 2 weeks of a travel horse. What?
A carriage ride?
Thank you. Of a travel horse.
Oh, not the travel horse.
It's 2 weeks of travel horse away.
Can I get the not travel horse? Can I get the one that doesn't travel?
It's 2 weeks of travel horse. And Lady Bridgerton hates this because it's so far away. Francesca will definitely not be making that trip frequently, and she won't be seeing her very often at all. Francesca and John are just like, we can't fucking wait. It's really quiet and far from shit, and I want to leave your ass and my whole family. So what are you going to do about it? Nothing. We're going to get married. So this is kind of a bummer for Violet. Yes, not for Francesca.
Near and dear and close.
At all times. We cut from Gunter's ice cream shop to the Bridgerton drawing room with Colin and Eloise. Eloise decides that she wants to talk to Colin, who's looking, again, very traumatized. 1,000-yard stare on this man. Eloise talks to him about how their family will survive the Queen's accusations of one of them being Lady Whistledown. You know, the Queen accused her of being Lady Whistledown, and she mostly came out fine. Mostly. She advises him not to let his marriage be a casualty of this Lady Whistledown conflict. Yeah. Which is rich coming from Eloise.
I can see this as coming from a place of experience. Like, hey, this happened and it sucked for me and we were able to move forward. I shunned my friend and look at us now trying to find our way back to each other.
Colin gets frustrated and exasperated at this line of conversation, and behind him, Penelope unexpectedly walks into the drawing room at Bridgerton House, followed closely by Lady Featherington. All the cards are on the table. Everyone who's in that room, Colin, Eloise, Penelope, Lady Featherington, know that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. There's no need for secrecy, no need to pretend. Penelope openly tells them, Cressida knows, she found out somehow, and now she's fucking blackmailing me. I wanted to be like honest with you guys, so I needed to tell you that. She's blackmailing me for £10,000. Penelope says she doesn't need Colin's help. She just wanted to be honest with him. And he responds, it's not up to you what we do, which I don't like. I didn't like that at all.
Nope.
And she, by her facial expression during this part, she also doesn't like that. And she's not really sure how to respond to it. He's trying to do damage control for the other Bridgertons because by his reasoning, if the secret is revealed, they're all fucked. It ruins his other sisters and his younger brothers, and he doesn't want to deal with that. I will not stand for anyone blackmailing my wife, says Colin, my wife Bridgerton.
I love my wife Colin. And I know, like, this is still murky in this area, right? Because he's trying to display some dominance, right? He's trying to regain some control. From his point of view, it's understandable, right? Because he feels like he's in a weak spot in his life and relationship. I feel like he's seeing an opportunity to regain the ability to help with something, right? To regain a purpose. If he can fix this, he can be as valuable as Lady Whistledown is at this moment in their relationship and in their lives. So this is him trying to be the hero. With all of that, it's a little murky because you kind of understand that. But as a woman, as a person, you're like, oh, yo, slow your roll. But I love my wife, Colin. Shit. Like, God.
That's my wife.
He's pissed. And even with everything fucking going on, he's like, nobody's going to blackmail my wife. She fucked up, but nobody's going to blackmail my wife.
At this point in the discussion, Penelope reveals, well, actually, I could probably just pay her and it would be fine.
Ooh. So there's this cut where Colin's already looking at her, but his body's like facing Eloise. And then when she says this, it's like his head stays in the same place and it just his body follows through. It is so funny the way he turned. Everyone's surprised in this scene. We got Mommy Morebugs. They didn't know they was fucking with Mommy Morebugs.
Because now they're all like, you have $1 million? Or, perdón, not dollars, pounds. It's pounds in today money.
10,000 pounds. She can go
10,000 pounds.
Buy out Pemberley right now.
She could literally pay Mr. Darcy's salary for a year. That shit's crazy. That's a lot of fucking money. And even Colin is like, for me to get that amount of money, I'd have to talk to Benedict. He'd have to liquidate some stuff, sign some shit. Nope, Penelope's got that shit. Cash, liquid. Where is it, baby? The floorboards of Featherington House. And everybody's stunned. He insists, you're not going to pay her. No one's going to pay her. I'll go talk to her myself. Because you know what you guys haven't considered? I'm a man.
I got this.
I know what I'm doing.
I can explain things.
You guys are just women with emotions. And I'm going to fix this.
This is me helping everyone, being the hero. This is what he does.
This is me now, right. Jennifer Lopez. Yes.
I know.
If you know, you know. So we cut from this tense scene in the Bridgerton house drawing room to part 1, because there's going to be multiple parts of a Benedict, Lady Tilly, and Paul Suarez threesome scene.
Yay.
Grab a cigarette, you guys, because you're going to need one after that scene's over. Okay, I have a couple of comments about this, because this is not the only time that they're going to cut to this threesome scene. I feel like the first cut was enough. The second cut, almost more than enough. The third cut, what are we doing now? And why?
I didn't understand the cut in.
The sequence of editing, like, they're usually so much more intentional about their editing than that.
I think maybe it's just trying to communicate, like, these people been fucking all day. Like, they started last night.
Someone's chafing.
It's 10 a.m. They still doing it right now. And then they're going to show us another
Tilly's
cat.
servants are afraid. Tilly's servants have just been staring at each other outside her door.
Everybody's going to need an Epsom salt bath after this because...
We cut away from the threesome to Colin calling upon Cressida at the Cowper home. This was so
is the next
fucking stupid. First, he goes to talk to Cressida. Lady Cowper is like, excuse me, I'm going to be in this room too because I'm not going to leave you unchaperoned with my daughter. And Cressida's like, hey, Mom, it doesn't fucking matter. Scram.
You remember how you're sending me to Wales? Leave me the fuck alone.
But even that happening, I'm like, stupid. And then he's talking to Cressida. He's trying to give some kind of weird study abroad pep talk speech about how he was so lonely when he was abroad because he missed his family so much. Again, I find this convoluted. If Paola explains this to me in a way that I like and I like it more, I accept. But this was so convoluted. This was so stupid and so pointless. It was a scene that was just used to force her to raise the stakes and drive the plot with more anxiety. Yeah. You had enough anxiety before that. You don't need to do any stake raising. The stakes are already high.
Girl, the way I hated
this scene was so stupid.
I understand his speech. I love his speech.
I think this is their way of bringing in those letters you mentioned, where he talks about how he missed his siblings while he was abroad.
Don't fucking, yo. That's exactly it, right? Those letters we were talking about mention all of these things. If we could have only dove into fucking writer Colin as he's writing these letters, you learn these things about his loneliness away from his trip. That didn't happen. All right, so we're taking this scene that they gave us, okay? I like his speech because he's finally outwardly stating everything we've been seeing in his character, right? From the facade to his loneliness and finally seeming to empathize with Penelope's reasoning behind Lady Whistledown because he goes into defending her and why she would be Lady Whistledown. So it was very satisfying to hear him say that out loud. Because that's starting to let you know he's starting that process of reconciling Penelope as Lady Whistledown to finally come to the conclusion that's always who she's been. I would have loved to see this conversation happening with his brother, happening with Eloise when they're both breaking it down, right? Because they're both still processing that. Eloise hasn't really fully forgiven Penelope at this point. That conversation between them two, chef's kiss, would have worked out great to help them through their character development and help them with their relationship to Penelope. But the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, why did they make him say this to Cressida? This felt dumb. And it's just like you said, they just created a situation for her to raise the stakes. And ultimately, it was also the show's way of putting him in a situation that he couldn't fix. Therefore, leading him to give up being the hero and to place his trust back on Penelope because he was clearly in over his head. He went into a situation he did not understand, tried to mansplain, and that shit backfired. The way I hated this scene and the way I saw it backfire, I was like, good, that's what the fuck you get. Also, the fact that this man communicates, I'm going to go speak to Cressida. And Eloise has nothing to say. She has no insight into, oh, maybe as you approach her.
Eloise doesn't volunteer.
Or fucking volunteer. Because guess what, guys? That would have given us character development for Eloise and for
resolution
Cressida.
Of their plot line. Maybe it would have confirmed to Cressida that Eloise knew Penelope was Whistledown and just kept the secret. Like, so many things.
And you can still keep them mad at each other, right? Because to me, I'm like, okay, they need Cressida and Eloise to still be at odds. They need Cressida to still be the bad guy because they're going to do something in season 4. Hopefully, unless they just drop the fucking storyline. And if she realizes Eloise knew from the jump, that still keeps that dynamic because she's pissed and feels betrayed.
How could you not tell me when I impulsively told your whole family?
So Eloise not volunteering, it would have done so much for viewers to see her maybe recognize that she had some fault. We're all annoyed at her. I don't think there's not one viewer that's still rooting for Eloise right now. We're all like, what the fuck was she doing?
She's literally a villain in this season.
So it would have really helped that to see her come to Cressida, woman to woman, explain the situation with Penelope. This would have helped multiple character arcs if you put Eloise in the place of Colin.
Eloise having that conversation with Cressida, this show would be fucking better for it. Because it's not necessarily that it would be fully resolved, right? And we mentioned that too. Like, not all plot points need resolution.
No,
it is that the plot point would be addressed. You would honor the fact that the viewer remembers this thing you made them watch. And here's a follow-up to that thing.
Right.
And that would just be better. What the fuck business does Colin have talking to Cressida? Nothing. So now he just and that's the other thing too. It's like, so they set him up in this plot point for him to bungle it,
for him to
and
fail.
for the stakes to get higher.
That was the only purpose of this scene. And there's so many other ways that it could have happened, and the story continues as they clearly wanted it to. Maybe just him fucking it up.
I hope there was a fight about this in the writer's room. Like, I hope whoever wrote this, like, all the other writers were like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
So yes, this scene was for Colin first to bring up that Colin might be jealous of Lady Whistledown because of the way he was talking about it. And second, for him to go in to try to fix a problem, miserably fail because he misunderstood and
the assignment.
He misunderstood the assignment, and therefore having to go back with his tail between his legs. And one thing I will respect is he was automatically like, I fucked that up. You were right. I should have just listened to you. He did say that from the rip, and I was like, respect. He acknowledged that he fucked that shit up and gave her credit for having known how to resolve it from the beginning, and he shouldn't have gotten involved.
Right.
And I think that's what the show wanted to give us with this scene. It could have happened a different way, but here we are.
Yeah.
And something I respect is how gracious Penelope was towards him, where she was just like,
she's gracious to everybody except when she's Lady Whistledown.
When she's Lady Whistledown. But because I think she knows what it feels like to fuck something up, to make a bad judgment call. She's done it a couple of times before, and so she's not going to berate you because you made a mistake. Thank you for trying to help and
making it worse.
Yes. I've done that before also. Been there, done that.
It's like, thank you for doing what you did. It was bad. Everything was bad. And I do want to call attention to one thing Cressida says before Colin leaves her presence.
Oui.
Because Colin kind of offhandedly mentions, hey, the town will forgive you for being Lady Whistledown, like next year, no one's going to remember that this happened. Like, another scandal will happen. Kind of what we have heard in every season of Bridgerton when the Bridgertons fuck something up. Something else will come along. People will forget. And he says the town will accept you again. So will your family. Your family will support you during this time because a family's love is enduring. And this would have been a great opportunity for somebody to fucking prep Colin, somebody like Eloise, and be like, hey, Cressida's family sucks major ass. And they don't fucking support her, and their love is not enduring, and she has a terrible relationship with them. There's something in her acting, Jessica Madsen, who plays Cressida, where it almost looks like she's swayed. Yes. She almost seems chastened by Colin's speech.
You feel like it almost works.
And then he brings up family love, and done. The gates are down. She's locked up for the day.
Yeah.
That was one way to goof it.
This theme of taking things for granted comes up again. Just like you said, the Bridgertons have been through multiple scandals. The ton, they forget.
The Queen,
they forget because of who they are and because of the influence they have. So they don't suffer many consequences from anything. They don't suffer many consequences in society, and they don't suffer many consequences within their home. So not only do they take for granted their beautiful family connection and bond, they also take for granted.
It's like the ease with which they exist in society.
Exactly.
They're just kind of like, of course everybody will accept you. What do you mean you needed to take out a student loan to go to college? But my parents paid for mine. And Cressida is like, you take for granted that you'll always have your family support. Leaves the room in tears after deciding that they have nothing more to discuss.
He chases after her.
He sure does. He follows her out into the hall. He tells her, hey, bitch, I was being nice, but guess what? No one will believe you anyway, because you suck. And Cressida's like, okay, you have until tonight's ball, the Dankworth Finch ball, to pay me £20,000 because now I decided that the price of my silence has doubled. Or I'll reveal Penelope's secret tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Like immediately following the ball.
So she about to be the richest
Bitch. She's about to be Oprah Winfrey out in these streets. I didn't know blackmailing could be so lucrative. I would do it more often if I knew. I also think that this is when Cressida is losing the fucking plot. Because genuinely, I think if she had just been like, give me £5,000 and we're going to call it even, Penelope would have been like,
she's
slid her £5,000 and out.
She's trying to get the bang for her buck.
And that's where she fucked up. She got greedy.
She could have went to the queen with the information.
Oh, it's Penelope.
But she goes to Penelope because she's like, oh, if I threaten
I think he'll give me more. This whole thing, she gets greedy, and we all know what happens to people who get greedy. And if you don't know what happens, watch any gangster mafia movie.
Ever since I can remember,
I wanted to be a gangster. So from here, this unfortunate fucking scene, we cut to Prudence and Philippa at the front door of the Featherington home, pleading with Lady Featherington to give them the money for the Dankworth Finch ball. This is embarrassing. Both of these bitches have husbands. Like, you paid for Penelope's wedding. Our weddings weren't that nice.
She did not pay for Penelope's wedding. The Bridgertons paid for Penelope's wedding.
Everyone's wrong. Every single person is wrong. They suck. Like, I don't even, and I am not like a universal hater of the Featherington sisters, but this entire season, they've been comically awful.
No, I wouldn't say entire season. I would say after going into
part
two,
two,
once the pregnancy race was over, then they put them like real deep in the background.
Dog, and don't get me started on that pregnancy race shit.
That shit was hilarious. I will respect it for its hilarity.
It was really funny in the part one of it all. Like, they made so many good jokes at the expense of this pregnancy thing. But, like, really? Is this a plot I'm following? Really?
They're supposed to be the comic relief. I'll take it.
Lady Featherington is being, like, very weird and evasive. She assigns Varley to help them plan their ball and ushers them away from her home anxiously. Meanwhile, Varley comes out and she's like, listen, if anyone can do more with less, you know it's gonna be me. Because you bitches have been broke too many times.
She knows how to stretch a dollar.
Absolutely. Varley knows how to be fucking scrappy. And that's why Lady Featherington isn't letting that bitch go anywhere. You know, somebody DM'd us and was like, you know, you guys keep talking about Ray and like Ray being the MVP. Varley's the real MVP.
Yo, low key. No, yes. High key. Varley is Absolutely. The true ride or die of this whole season. No, of the Featherington MVP. Since season one, for sure.
She's held them down crazy.
She's out here forging documents and letters.
Portia Featherington, there ain't no Portia without Varley. That's the love story of the Featheringtons. And the camera pans up. So this is kind of an interesting directorial choice, I thought. The camera pans up over Portia, back inside the Featherington home, and we ascend to the second floor Featherington drawing room, where Penelope and Eloise are draped over the couch. Very reminiscent of how they would sit next to each other in season one. Abochincha.
I was very excited to see this callback. It like warmed my heart a little bit to see this shot almost exactly how we see them in season one. I feel though somewhere inside that I don't think Eloise deserved it yet.
No, you feel somewhere inside. I feel it outside. I feel it on my face.
I would just say I think I needed to see an apology from Eloise.
She never apologizes like, to anybody.
I love that they reconciled, but it also felt like, wait, hold on. What did she say? Did they talk about it? No. And, you know, and I can see Penelope just so happy that they're on good terms again.
Penelope needs connection. Like, she's literally starving for connection.
Yeah. Well, she's been so lonely, right?
And because of Colin, she just doesn't have other people that she can rely on or feel like she can confide in. And so when Eloise is like, oh, well, maybe we can like start talking and be friends again, Penelope's like, yes, amazing. Yep, come right back.
A big theme this season is loneliness. We see that obviously Colin just did a whole speech. He actually mansplained loneliness to all of us. We see that in Cressida. We
mansplain loneliness.
see that in Penelope throughout her story. And I think we saw that for Eloise a little bit this season too, where I think she's been talking about feeling like a bit dipping out.
So Eloise and Penelope are pretty much totally friends again.
With Eloise having to do nothing, by the way.
Yeah, with Eloise doing no work, no growth. With Eloise being a fucking villain. Penelope asks if Eloise truly liked Cressida or just befriended her to hurt Penelope's feelings, which I think was a funny question. Eloise responds, I mean, like a little bit of both, bitch. She was fun at the beginning, but I got fucking tired of her, so I took her ass, I dumped her. And they like laugh together because that's funny. Eloise, you suck. You suck. You and I have mentioned this like in a previous episode, like growing up is realizing that once you were Eloise, like to somebody, I feel that. I don't have to like it, but I feel it. I'm certain I've been a fucking villain, but I just hope that I've grown enough where I'm not anymore, but Eloise is a fucking villain.
No, I'm pretty sure we're a villain in somebody's story.
As Eloise and Penelope are having this like sweet and tender moment where the writers of the show hope that you forget how much Eloise has sucked ass, Colin returns from the Cowper home and walks into the Featherington home drawing room with Lady Featherington on his heels. And he just announces, I'm afraid I have failed. Straightforward. And announces how badly he fucked this situation up with Cressida. She now wants £20,000. £20,000. 2.2 million 2024 pounds. Which Penelope officially doesn't have. The 10,000, she could swing. The 20,000, nah, dog. That's 3 more years of Lady Whistledown wages right there. And she wants Penelope to use the Lady Whistledown column to restore Cressida's reputation in the ton. Bitch, no. Sorry, you fucked up your reputation on your own. Penelope didn't do that to you. She can't fix it if she didn't do it. Colin says he can get the money together to pay her off, but he'll need to lie to Benedict or Antony to get it. Lady Featherington's like, oh, cool, nice. She's beyond fixing, low-key, Lady Featherington.
Well, first, she wanted Colin to pay Cressida
the 10,000.
She's like, well, you'll pay him, right? You'll pay him?
Because you're rich. You're Bridgerton?
You just paid for this wedding. You could pay for this too, right?
I don't know, because it kind of feels like Lady Featherington is just ready to take advantage of their wealth at any time.
Yeah.
Anytime a problem presents itself, it's like, but they can pay for it, right? And it's like, regardless of whether they can or they can't, nobody's asking you to pay for it. Shut up. Like, it's just the energy there is so weird. Penelope, more graciously than she deserves, thanks Lady Featherington and Colin, quote, for their counsel, unquote. She's like, I should have taken off the kid gloves immediately, and instead I let myself be led astray.
By you bitches.
And from here, we cut. Where do we cut, folks? To Benedict, Lady Tilly, and Paul having a threesome part 2.
Still.
Wow. Again, someone needs baby powder. Someone needs a nap. I don't know if they have protein bars. I don't think they have Gatorade. They need a little break.
I'm sure there's been...
Someone needs to wash the sheets on that bed. Ay, ay, ay. Why do we have that cut? Nobody knows. Because right after that cut, we cut to Lady Bridgerton and Lady Danbury.
They wanted to pepper it in. Listen, and don't fucking catch me complaining about some spicy scenes, okay? But it didn't make sense to put it where they put it. It felt so out of place. Like, give us a 5-minute montage. Like, if this was what you wanted to do, like, just give us a 5-minute montage. But again, it's letting you know that it's nighttime now. Because we went from the daytime, they're going through all of this, back to Benedict. It's nighttime.
So this is fucking for 36
another
hours.
night. This is a separate night. They're going at it. They're taking clothes off again. Tilly went and got herself some water. She's back.
After, again, threesome cut 2, we go to Lady Bridgerton and Lady Danbury at Danbury House drinking scotch. Many symbols happening at the same time. Lady Bridgerton is wearing lavender embellished lace on her gown, and Lady Danbury is wearing olive green velvet on like a deceptively simple looking gown. She usually wears burgundies, purples, blood reds. And so to see her wearing olive green, I thought was really interesting.
Well, one thing, green can symbolize healing. And I think that's something she did with her brother earlier on. This conversation she's having with Violet becomes a healing conversation as well. That's what comes to mind to me.
They discuss scotch as, you know, they're sipping, as Francesca moving so far away from Violet. The scotch is harsh, but it grows on one with time. And Lady Bridgerton comments, it's still harsh.
Yeah.
I still don't like it. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. Lady Danbury reminds Violet that she will always be there to support her as her friend once Francesca is gone so far away, and that Lord Anderson will also be there to support her as well, because now we are getting into it. All the cards are on the table. Lady Danbury fucked Violet's dad, and Violet wants to fuck Lady Danbury's brother, and they decide that they're just going to be really chill about these things. Which I love that. And Lady Danbury says if her brother does anything to Violet, that she'll choose Violet, no questions asked. And I was like, and that's friendship.
I love this conversation between them. I loved that they took this opportunity to kind of officially 100% put it out there. Hey, I know. Hey, it's okay.
You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to feel weird. We don't have to talk about it even. Like,
yeah.
I care about you as my friend, and anything you do outside of that is your business. And the camera cuts out away from them still in Lady Danbury's room and brings into focus the birthday hat that Lord Ledger made for her that's sitting on top of a mantle in her room.
When I saw that birthday hat, I was like, oh, I really did enjoy how they did this scene. I don't think it's the same birthday hat though. So no el mismo color. So I wonder if it could have either been a different hat or maybe if it discolored with time.
After this really kind and touching scene between Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton, what do we cut to, friends? I'll tell you. We cut to Benedict, Lady Tilly, and Paul having a threesome.
Well done. They're done this time.
They're done now. I'm going to label this chapter of the threesome aftercare. Benedict, laying lasciviously across this bed, declares that he has love to give in abundance and that he loves a party of 3. And then he and Paul start making out again because they're probably going to have more sex. Lady Tilly almost looks uncomfortable watching Benedict and Paul together. She's got a weird look on her face that we don't really get to examine too much.
Well, Benedict kisses her and then he breaks their kiss to go kiss Paul. And she seems to kind of ponder on that.
So we cut away from the threesome to Colin in a dark study at his new home, looking traumatized and sad. He steps into his bedroom where Penelope has been sleeping alone and is preparing for bed and looks very beautiful. He looks at her longingly, grabs a blanket, and leaves the room because he is going to once again sleep on a couch that doesn't look like it was meant for sleeping, much less sitting. So the following morning, Penelope leaves their bedroom fully dressed and tells Colin she is taking tea with her mother before Francesca's wedding to spare him from the confines of a shared carriage. Once she leaves, Colin pulls out his old letters from Penelope that he's kept in his desk and fondly rereads them. This is the moment where you're supposed to perceive him as marrying the idea of Lady Whistledown and Penelope as one person.
Don't you wish that maybe you didn't have to guess that in this specific scene? This is him reading her letters and realizing she's been Whistledown the whole time and she's written me these letters. This is who's been writing to me. This is always who she's been. This is the person that I've cared for. It was always her. She has not changed. That's him seeing that.
We cut from there to the Featherington drawing room. Lady Featherington is in her drawing room looking like she's in mourning, honestly, in a mostly black or very dark navy gown that's embellished with flowers. This entire season is the darkest we've seen Lady Featherington dressed. Varley enters and announces that Walter Dundas Esquire, the solicitor that we met earlier this same season, is at the residence and she, quote, cannot hold him off any longer, end quote. I mean, this guy is like, he swans around. He doesn't give a feck. Like, he delivers all of his lines in like the same bemused tone of voice. They have a contentious discussion when he says he has proof that Aunt Petunia, who Portia claims to have inherited her new fortune from, was actually broke and that they couldn't have inherited that money from her, which is true.
Yep.
And their money is actually from Jack Featherington's fraud. Also true. So Walter Dundas seems to be quite good at his job.
He figured this shit out.
And this is mostly kind of conjecture, right? Like, he's spoken to a couple people. He's done a little bit of investigating. He doesn't really have like hard evidence of this, like a paper trail. Forensic accounting, that wasn't the de rigueur profession in the 1800s.
Well, no. And also he still has to present it, right? This is just,
Yeah,
he's
to the
gathered
crown.
these, right. He's gathered these things and now he's going to present it as evidence to the crown. And then they decide what happens from there on, right?
And he's pretty much like, it kind of sucks that the Featherington title is going to go to someone else, but you're a criminal. Bye. He exits, and right behind him, we see Penelope, who has now overheard this entire conversation. She is shocked that Portia stole so much money from the Ton with the help of Jack Featherington. She used that money to fund their lives, pretty much. I hate this. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I fucking hate this. Portia draws a false equivalence between her actions and Penelope's Lady Whistledown gossip sheet, saying that Penelope stole their dignity. Portia may have stolen money from the Ton, but Penelope stole the dignity from the people and from her own family. And it's like, Portia, if you don't shut the fuck up about how these things are not the same at all.
Not the same at all. I mean, we have been drawing some parallels between Portia and Penelope.
And there are many to be drawn.
This season especially, I think we see a lot of those parallels. But this is Portia melodrama right here. And Penelope, she calls her out. She's like, you committed a crime. I talk shit about some people. I didn't take nobody's dignity. What? I mean, to Portia's defense, she's like, I was doing it to protect my family. Like, what were you doing with your column? Penelope's like, to protect myself. What the fuck? Portia asks, protect yourself from who? Penelope just looks at her like, and she's like, you know what? You're right. Don't fucking answer that. The comparison to Portia's fraud to Penelope's gossip sheet, that's pure Portia melodrama.
Stupid.
Dumb.
Portia sits on one of the sofas in the sitting room and muses on raising daughters after being told her entire life that all power only comes from men. Basically, how was she supposed to do anything differently? Like, I thought men controlled everything, and here I am raising daughters to be married into subservience, like me. And it's like, I don't know, you could have done that without the crime. So she says that both she and Penelope did their best with what they had. Did they? I don't agree with you, Portia. Portia continues to muse on how Lady Whistledown will write of the Featheringtons' disgrace in her gossip sheet. And Penelope says, no, she won't.
I'll write what I want to write.
Exactly. I am Lady Whistledown. This is my power. And Portia says, maybe we're more alike than I ever thought.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this already. By this point in the episode, I was like, I'm tired. I'm done.
I loved this, actually.
It's because I can't tell if Portia's being earnest.
I think at this point she's being earnest because
I think initially she wasn't.
Initially it was all superficial. In this moment, I believe she is resigned. That's why I think this conversation is genuine, because she goes into criticizing herself. There's this self-awareness in her conversation. And I do agree with the parallel that in different ways in their lives saw themselves trapped. And so they used what they had in front of them to help their situation, to help liberate them in one way or the other. For Penelope, that was Lady Whistledown and helping her express herself. And for Portia, that was protecting her family.
After this scene between Penelope and Portia, we go back to the Bridgerton house for Francesca's wedding. Lady Bridgerton and Francesca have a moment as Francesca gets dressed and fully ready. Her dress feels so not contemporaneous. It feels Edwardian era. So like early 1900s, late 1800s.
Really does.
It's stunning.
This looks
she
like
looks
Kate
amazing.
Winslet's dress in the Titanic.
She looks fucking great, but the design of this dress is in no way contemporaneous. Or, you know what? I could be full of shit. Maybe it is, but I don't think so. Lady Bridgerton is wearing a gorgeous embellished gown that is more contemporary to the period. Francesca says that moving to Scotland will help her... Paola, will help her stay close to her family because she'll finally be able to grow into herself and find her own way? ?
Girl, what?
Like, can someone help me? Like, I'm limping through this last episode. I have been wounded in battle. Like, this last episode is fucking brutal for me.
When I heard her say this, I can't help you read between the lines here because she went in a circle and said nothing.
I was so tired by this point. I was like, literally, Paula, when I tell you, I kept pausing the episode and turning to Ryan and just like, when is this going to end? When is this going to be over? I'm done.
This thing that Francesca said made no sense whatsoever. There might be some nuance in this conversation that maybe we might pick up on if we did read the book. If a listener out there knows of what might be the nuance in this conversation that Francesca's having with her mom about being closer by being further, we would love the insight. But to me, it didn't mean anything. She could have said nothing and would have relayed the same sentiment.
And Lady Bridgerton starts talking about when she fell in love with Viscount Bridgerton, Edmund, and how when they met, she was so struck by him that she pretty much like forgot her own name and like all of the normal words she would say upon being introduced to someone, and that love was swift and forceful. And Francesca is like, eye roll, like, Mama, I thought we fucking talked about this. Like, John Sterling is a good man and he's who I want to marry. Lady Bridgerton's like, yes, there's nothing wrong with the slow approach. He's a good man. He's a great choice. He's a good match. I'm happy for you. And that's supposed to wrap up their kind of like rift over how in love with John Francesca is. Okay. We leave this scene. Now we're officially at John and Francesca's wedding. They're married. Yay, great. Francesca makes a weird face right after she kisses her groom that the camera lingers on.
It does linger on. She was like, Also, you're telling me y'all been courting and you haven't, like, kissed?
I don't think they're supposed to.
Are we watching the same show?
I know, Paola.
But
these Francesca's not
are fondling each other.
She's not like
all
the
over
other
the
girls
place.
because she is very lukewarm about her husband.
Then that's...
So, feels like a foreshadowing moment.
You know what else feels foreshadowing? When the guy says, "Till death do you part," he looks right at John. Speaking of foreshadowing.
Yeah, no, I did kind of catch that, and I thought that was reckless of the show to do.
You guys are messy.
So the siblings that are in attendance at this wedding, Colin, Benedict, Eloise, and Francesca, Hyacinth and Gregory, are talking after the wedding and see how Lord Anderson is paying attention to Lady Bridgerton. Benedict says, "She looks happy, who cares?" And he's right.
He is right.
Colin jokes that Lord Anderson should just be happy that Antony's out of town, and I agree.
I love how, like, all the siblings, they're all like, this is great. We love this for her. Good thing Anthony's not here because he would be a disaster.
He would be a fucking mess, and I agree. We see Hyacinth chatting with Alice Mondrich. Francesca points out to Eloise that she should hope Lady Bridgerton is otherwise occupied so that she doesn't start to focus on getting Eloise married off again.
You know, though, and it's been pointed out that Eloise's lavender dress and jacket that she's wearing in this scene resembles the book cover of her book, To Sir Philip with Love.
Lady Danbury, who is also chatting with Violet and Lord Anderson, steps away to give them some alone time. She steps away with a meaningful look. Lord Anderson compliments Lady Bridgerton and asks her to save a dance for him at the Dankworth Finch ball. For those who know, Violet hasn't danced with anyone since Edmund.
Yeah.
Has not danced at a ball. So this is like huge for her. In this moment, John Sterling decides to give a toast at his wedding, even though it's really not his strong suit. But he does a great job.
He does.
This is such a tearjerker of a toast.
It really is, because the way that he points out all the characteristics that Violet has like passed down to her kids, right? It shows you how
that he pays attention,
how observant he is and empathetic, even if he doesn't communicate it.
Yeah, his speech is very heartfelt. It's very sweet. Francesca beckons Lady Bridgerton after this speech, after everyone is sniffly and crying because it was so sweet, to quote unquote play a duet on the pianoforte. And this is supposed to be like a moment of like unity and connection between Francesca and Lady Bridgerton. I'm not abandoning you. Look. And it's stupid. Sorry. I'm heartless, but it's fucking stupid.
It calls back to a conversation she had with Francesca earlier in the season. When she's kind of trying to get a feel for like how Francesca feels about suitors and all of that. And she's very unexcited the whole time about suitors. She knows she wants to get married because that's the thing she needs to do. And she's just like, I just want to do it and get it over with. And Violet's trying to get her to have a bit more feeling or fun about it. And so she describes it as, you know, sometimes when you meet somebody, it's like playing a duet. So I think this kind of maybe plays back to that, like her rebuilding her relationship with her mom after they kind of had like this tiff, and quite literally playing a duet to reconnect them.
I'm glad you remembered that because I didn't. And this scene annoyed me. But I love that. I love that you remembered that. I love that callback. Wow, that's like good writing, bringing something full circle.
You know what? This episode brings a lot of things full circle. And it's one of the things I do appreciate from this episode. There was just a lot of things to bring full circle.
Too many, some might say. And Penelope beckons Colin to speak privately in one of the rooms in the Bridgerton house, where she tells him that she no longer wishes to lie to his family about the Lady Whistledown situation. And he's desperately like, how can I help you? And she just says, by loving me.
Yes. I love this line. It's not what you do for me that makes me love you. It is your kindness and empathy and how much you care. Just being you is enough. He needed to hear that so bad. It was very satisfying to see her finally like say it to him clear as day, and him accepting it and taking it. And you can see that it made him emotional in that moment. He does bring up that the situation with Cressida and the situation with Lady Whistledown is going to continue to hang over them. And so here you get the impression they don't communicate it on screen, but based on their acting, you understand that she's telling him that she's going to reveal herself to the Ton. And then the next scene, she's rushing over to her writing desk and writing letters. And then you see the people receive the letters. So you're assuming she's letting the people close to her know, hey, this is the thing that's happening. This is the thing I'm going to do.
By this point, I was really losing my patience with the episode.
Yeah. In the book, it happens in a very similar way after the whole Cressida thing. Cressida happens and then these letters happen back to back. And it's not her doing it. It's Colin doing it for her.
We see that in this batch of letters, Queen Charlotte seems to receive a shocking letter.
I would love to know what these letters say, by the way.
Girl, same.
Wouldn't it have been great if like maybe in voiceover.
A little voiceover of what the fuck is in the letters.
Lady Whistledown voiceover.
Benedict goes to Lady Tilly's in the following scene, and he really wants to keep that threesome party going. But Lady Tilly is like, hey, Paul is doing something else because I just want to hang out with you solo. And she's pretty much opening up to Benedict now, where she's like, hey, listen, like, I know that when we met, I like wasn't into the idea of commitment, and I told you that I didn't want to be courted, but like, I really like you, and I kind of want like more of this. And much like every woman who's ever dated a man, when they initially kept things casual and wanted to become more serious, she is about to be disappointed. As she's opening up to Benedict, he's kind of like, I mean, I don't know, like, you've really opened up my eyes to fucking men. So I really just want to, like, do that more. With more people outside of you.
Yeah.
You see how this is tricky for me.
You made me realize how free I can be, and I'm not ready to give that up.
And honestly, Lady Tilly like really could not be more gracious in this part, because she's just like, okay, you know what? I'm so grateful to you for showing me that I could still want commitment, that I like you so much, that I'm capable of liking someone so much that I want to be with them.
We forget that she is a widow. So I don't know that she's still grieving, but she hasn't been able to reconnect with anyone or connect with anyone, maybe the way she was able to with her husband who passed. So it's giving her that hope that she could start anew.
She can have a garden once more.
Something I did like about this conversation is that it felt very clear. It felt very two adults talking to each other, saying, hey, I know we started like this, but things have kind of changed for me, and now I feel like this. And person saying, well, you know, I kind of feel like that. And I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't work for me. This works for me. Okay, cool. And now you go forward with information.
Next, we see Benedict, who's now kind of forlorn and sad, you know, after this situationship breakup with Lady Tilly, approaching Eloise, who is sitting on those famous swings in the garden of the Bridgerton home. Here's kind of where we see them like reunite and interact in season 1. I think we see them there briefly in season 2. And now this is the only time we've gotten to see them there in season 3. And their interactions are my favorite.
I love them.
They're the brother-sister duo like for the ages. He approaches Eloise as she's solo on the swing. He starts chatting with her about, you know, how they've both been feeling pretty like lost and out of place this season. This feels like a grounding moment, I think, for them as characters. They're kind of like the sibling that they each will touch base with.
Yeah.
Even if they're not being 100% transparent, even if Benedict's not like, oh, I just fucked a dude for the first time and it changed my life. They're both just kind of like saying it without saying it to each other, which I like. I like that level of like sibling intimacy that they have. Eloise declares like she can't wait to leave Mayfair. How can she want to change the world when she hasn't even seen any of it?
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. Like, I think that shows that maybe we're going to get those pieces of growth from Eloise next season that we definitely did not get this season. And Benedict ominously declares, I feel as though whatever I learn next will change me forever.
Dun, dun, dun.
Girl, what?
He learned something about himself he didn't know before in the past couple
likes
of days.
Dudes!
And that's a big change for him. These moments between them always heal a little part of me because they get vulnerable. I feel like most of the time they're kind of just going through life with a bit of a, like, an air to them, right? Like Benedict, I'm out here, I'm free, I'm chilling, I got no problems, I'm freewheeling. And Eloise always has, like, she's the smart and critical and, I'm too cool for you type of person. But then these moments in the swings is when they're vulnerable with each other.
And from this swing moment, we cut over fucking finally. Like, I'm like, this is the episode from hell. It took forever. The Dankworth Finch ball. Philippa and Prudence visit the venue of the ball to look at it before the guests arrive. They're fully dressed. They're all made up. It looks exactly the way they wanted it to. Orange and purple. With this big rotunda that serves as a dance floor in the middle of the greenhouse looking space and a gorgeous chandelier. Apparently they've secured bugs, whatever the fuck that means. Philippa is wearing a purplish blue gown and Prudence is wearing a green gown, kind of like shiny, like a mermaid, like plasticky mermaid.
You know what I thought about? The memory that surged back into my brain when I'm seeing this. This gave me Xenon Girl of the 21st Century.
Oh, no, you're right.
I haven't seen that in 20 years, so I may be wrong, but for some reason it's the first fucking thing I thought about. Listen, I get it. This season wanted to do more with everything, and the costume department did more. The makeup department did more. It was a lot more of everything. Feast for the eyes. Once you got with the shiny, you took me all the way out.
I mean, honestly, though,
all the way out.
I was lost before. Like, the season really lost me like a long time ago, but it just made me angry. Like, it lost me, but now I'm angry about it. Now we're at the ball. It hasn't quite started. They're marveling at their surroundings, all the decorations. It looks so beautiful. And they're like, Varley, oh my God, you did it. You fucking crushed it. You absolute tigra. You fucking did it. Penelope walks in with Lady Featherington. They are both wearing like a tealy blue color and they pretty much match.
They do.
It's like they're on the same page.
They're on the same page.
Penelope is wearing the most garish overlined red lipstick. And I don't know why they did her like this for this ball.
They did her like this for this ball because they felt that the storytelling behind her look was one of power. They felt that a bold red lip translates to powerful femininity, coming into your power as a woman. That's what they wanted to communicate, and I fully get that and understand it. I don't like how it looked.
Yeah, I think they played her. And I've seen Nicola do red lipstick on, like, red carpets and in editorials, and she looks incredible.
But something about the way
it was like applied really thick. It was like overlined. Like, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan. And what we learn is that Penelope has paid for the ball, but makes it seem like Lady Featherington paid for it in front of Prudence and Philippa. Mm-hmm. Prudence and Philippa approach Lady Featherington and thank her effusively. They're so, oh, mama, you did it. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, Lady Featherington is making eyes at Penelope. The dance floor, as I mentioned, is this raised kind of circular rotunda in the middle of the hall. We see Lady Danbury arrive. Lady Danbury is once again wearing green velvet. Lady Violet enters the hall accompanied by Lord Anderson.
Arm in arm.
Arm in arm. As well as Francesca, John Sterling, and Eloise. We see Prudence freak out on the dance floor because Queen Charlotte has arrived at the ball. She apologizes. She's like, I'm so sorry we didn't invite you because we didn't think you'd come. But, like, thank you so much for being here. This is, like, the best and amazing. And Queen Charlotte's like, bitch, I didn't come to your fucking ball to hang out with you. And this is when I was like, maybe shit's going to turn around. Maybe we're going to throw down. Maybe we're going to have a cage match. Queen Charlotte, Penelope. Obviously, I'm kidding. But, like, I was like, maybe something will fucking happen, right? Maybe something will happen. Okay, sure, Nadhya. Famous last words. Queen Charlotte quiets the musicians and steps up onto the central stage, which is now cleared of dancers. Everybody's like, what the fuck is happening? She announces that due to her efforts at exposing Lady Whistledown, she has received a letter from the scribe herself prior to the Dankworth Finch ball. She's wearing this like incredibly embellished like greenish blue dress in the Georgian court style that we're accustomed to seeing her in. It's got these like flowers on it. Like she just looks really, really, really cool. She invites Lady Whistledown onto the dance floor to address the Ton herself. At this point, for comic relief, Mr. Finch sneezes and the queen looks at him with like a disdainful little look and goes, "Not you, her," while dramatically pointing directly at Penelope.
She like nervously goes up, almost like, did she not expect her to point her out, or
did she not set this up on purpose?
Yeah, I wanted to see her take this moment on more confidently. I understand her playing her character as like scared because the queen is very intimidating. But yeah, also, you know, going to like what you were saying about her look, you know what it's giving? Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit was on the mood board.
I feel like I've seen Jessica Rabbit on the mood board somewhere for her looks around, and I think this is the moment for it.
Eloise looks terrified as Penelope approaches the floor. Lady Danbury almost looks satisfied. Everyone else looks confused as fuck. Penelope steps up, greets the entirety of the ball with "Dearest gentle readers." Girl.
I didn't like how that sounded.
I didn't either. Like now is not the time for theatrics.
Yes, it was very theatrical. It was. And she's quite literally under like a spotlight almost, right? Like now there's electricity in this ball.
I hate you. I cannot stand you.
Spotlight over
Burning.
her, directly over her. I mean, going with the title of the episode is Into the Light. She's stepping into the light to expose who she is to the Ton.
At this point, dog, like it's giving me murder mystery.
No, it's giving Katie splitting the crown at prom night in Mean Girls.
I'm dead.
And especially when she's like, you know, I've been captivated by you all. Like, why are you complimenting these people right now?
Right. Why are you playing to their egos? Like, they're mad at you.
To answer your thought on why is she playing to their ego, I think this was purposely done because that's how you garner a bit of sympathy. Because I think her approach is meant to come off as her humbling herself in order to give the queen the upper hand and the illusion of control. Kind of like the same way we see Lady Danbury playing the queen, giving her the illusion of control. All the queen has ever really wanted from Whistledown is to submit power, to one-up her. She's only mad at her for outsmarting her. She is elevating the queen and the queen's opinion.
And I just want to call out, she's wearing these stupid fuck-ass lace gloves that are literally fingerless hand socks. I hate these things. God, they look so stupid.
You know, there was some points in the season where I thought it went really well. At first, it was new and it was a novelty. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I kept seeing it. And then I
was done.
And then she wore them at the wedding with her wedding dress. And I'm like, wait, what?
She announces that she needs to live her life openly and decide that she still has worth even when she's living out in the open. Colin seems to be crying, teary-eyed, but he nods at her encouragingly.
Yes. And I feel like they show him specifically in this part when she says, regardless of the outcome, one always has worth. No matter what you do, you will always be worthy. And she's speaking to him directly at that point.
Penelope says, and I quote, "All of us talk. We gossip. Gossip is information. It forges bonds, especially with those of us who are told so little," unquote, also known as fucking women. Penelope publicly thanks the queen for, quote, "forcing her out of the shadows," unquote. And if the queen kindly allows her to continue, she will aim her quill more responsibly.
Right.
This is like going to detention. This is like, oh, you were late for class. Stay for 15 minutes after school. Like,
she went to the principal's office. The queen this season was the principal. And first she called Cressida to the principal's office. Now it's Penelope volunteering to go to the principal's office.
She addresses the queen directly in front of the entire ball, and the queen feels compelled to display kindness. What?
It's not even kindness.
It's like a dismissal.
It's a dismissal. It's a dismissal. It's not even kind. It's kind of like, okay, well, you seem like you're humbled. The show just wanted to show you that the queen accepted her as Lady Whistledown, and all the other shit is water under the bridge.
It was so anticlimactic. She seems humbled, says Queen Charlotte. What is life without a little gossip? And the queen leaves the ball.
And she's just like, okay, bye.
Nothing else happens.
I don't know that I expected much else to happen. I mean, at this point, the queen didn't have the ire that we expected for her to have. I think all of us watching were kind of in the position that Lady Danbury was when they're in the middle of that chess game, where we're like, what are you really going to do? Are you going to make her stop writing? Are you going to lock her up? And she doesn't answer because she doesn't know. The show hasn't given her a strong enough reason to dislike Whistledown. It doesn't exist.
Nothing happens.
So I think from the beginning, we expected like some type of alliance. But this didn't even feel satisfying because we didn't even really see an allegiance. There wasn't really a conversation. It was just, okay, I accept what you're giving me. And okay, all right, continue on. She was accepted, right? The queen's always the one at the end of the balls. Season 1, season 2, season 3, the crazy convoluted situation, she accepts it, and therefore the Ton accepts it. And I think that this was the Ton accepting Lady Whistledown as Penelope.
And everyone at the ball is rightfully very confused at how the fuck to proceed.
Dude, I understand that Penelope needed to do this on her own. In the book, this happens, and Colin's the one to bring forth that she is Whistledown. And the way it happens in the book, it's kind of nice because he's the one that exposes her, but also it's done in a very prideful way. It's a very like, let me reintroduce you to my wife, also known as Lady Whistledown. The crowd goes wild and they exit left, right? I love that in the show, they let Penelope do it for herself because the whole season, there's a big focus on Penelope coming into her own light, right? Penelope coming into her own, Penelope taking accountability, coming into her power. We needed to see that visually, and she does that in front of the queen, in front of the Ton, on her own, herself. That was important to watch.
What we do get is Penelope's sister Philippa running across the circular platform shouting, "Now, Varley, the bugs!" Varley pulls this giant gold cord that is attached to this like velvet curtain on the wall.
Yeah.
And releases dozens of butterflies into the ballroom.
I was a big fan of that visual. After Penelope, makes her speech, the release of these butterflies, right? Symbolizing transformation, evolution, growth, beauty. Why did Philippa need to run across the stage, intersecting her visually? Like, I didn't like it. The bugs. And I think what the show wanted to do was to give a moment where her sister's championing her. I didn't need to see that as much as I needed to see Colin coming up to her, loving her and accepting her in front of the entire Ton as another fuck you to everyone around her that's always judged her. That I feel would have been more satisfying.
Dancing resumes. Because now the Ton has been distracted enough by a bunch of butterflies to forget that she's Lady Whistledown. We see the Featherington girls hop onto the dance floor with their husbands. Penelope holds a butterfly delicately on her finger until it flies away. Big symbolism about being a butterfly, transformation. Lady Danbury approaches Penelope, basically lets her know, like, yeah, bitch, I knew. Suspected that Penelope was Whistledown for a little while, but that she could keep a secret. And that she looks forward to her next edition of Lady Whistledown. I fucking love Lady Danbury. And that kind of calls back to the book as well.
That does. In the book, Lady Danbury is always like riding for Penelope. And always coming to her defense as well. The same way we saw her be super excited when she learned about their engagement. So that was a bit of a callback to the book. I would have loved to see the moment where Lady Danbury figured it out.
Yeah.
And another thing with the butterflies symbolize the Featheringtons, and also ties back to the Eros and Psyche narrative because Psyche is represented with butterfly wings.
So Portia approaches Penelope to congratulate her ? What? Penelope tells Portia that they can tell the solicitor that her (parentheses Jack Featherington and parentheses) money came from Lady Whistledown money and that he can't prove otherwise. Because again, as I mentioned previously, forensic accounting, it is not the main profession of the 1800s. That will secure the Featherington line and properties, keep it in their family. They don't have to turn out Lady Featherington, move her out of her home that she loves so much. And Lady Featherington is just like, cool, thanks.
Nice, awesome. That works out. Thank you.
You could pay Cressida £10,000. And Penelope says, because we must do better. I'm sorry. And like the face I'm making right now, I'm a hater. You guys know that. I am... Damn, because I'm like, what the fuck?
She wants to do better, as in they have to work together as a family.
Yeah. Portia and Penelope are besties now, guys. 18 years of trauma disappeared. Colin approaches Penelope and they greet each other. He thanks her for sending the letters to his mother that both surprised and impressed her. Wow, it would have been so sick to know what was in that letter.
Would have loved to know.
Penelope says she would not object to an annulment of their marriage if Colin chose, because she doesn't wish any more harm to come to him as a result of her being whistled down.
Can I just say, I loathed this annulment bit. It was so fucking unnecessary. And I recognize that maybe this is Portia, right? Because Portia's the one that first brought it up when she learned that she was whistled down, like, oh, your husband can get an annulment. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's like Portia's voice in her brain. But this is like the second time that she like mentions like either not going through with the marriage or annulling. Like, shut the fuck up. That's not going to happen. Annul the marriage. Shut up.
But the queen has accepted you, Colin replies. And Penelope comes back with, Whistledown has done so much damage, some people may not forget. Colin does a big speech where he claims to have reconciled that Penelope has always been Lady Whistledown and that they're impossible to separate. Yes. He tried so hard to separate them in his mind. He was unsuccessful. They've always been the same. He admits to being envious of Penelope and her success and her bravery, and that he can't believe that such a woman loves him.
So sweet.
Quote, how lucky I am to stand by your side and soak up even a little bit of your light. If my only purpose in life is to love a woman as great as you, then I will be a very fulfilled man indeed.
Mel, this was such a sweet line, and it was so well delivered.
It was very well delivered. Penelope says, I love you. You're a very good man, Mr. Bridgerton. Aww. And he responds, and I love you. Everyone's crying. We're all crying.
It's so sweet.
Wow, don't you wish they had more? Don't you wish they had more in their own season? Don't you wish they had more? Okay.
Oh my God.
He takes her onto the dance floor for a dance. Very sweet after this incredibly epic speech. Eloise is watching on the outskirts of the dance floor and is joined by Francesca. And it's cute. They like have this moment where they like bump each other's shoulders. They seem very much like sisters. And Francesca asks Eloise whether or not she's happy. And Eloise is kind of like, you know what? I'm happy because I have a great idea and let me pitch it to you. She asks Francesca if she can accompany her to Scotland because she's never been anywhere else other than London or Aubrey Hall. And, quote, I cannot change the world if I do not see more of it, end quote. Okay, girl. I don't think it'll be that different, but okay. John approaches them and Francesca lets him know that Eloise has asked to tag along to Scotland. He is like great about it. He genuinely seems really excited. He's like, wow, that's awesome news. Can't wait to have you. She'll complete our travel party because she'll be really great company for my cousin. His cousin? What? His cousin, Michaela Sterling.
Ooh.
Who swoops in, beautiful and charismatic.
Swoop. That's the correct word.
And introduces herself to an incredibly flustered, speechless Francesca Bridgerton Sterling.
Ooh, Francesca, you remember that thing Violet was telling you about how she couldn't even remember her own name when she first met Edmund? Well, there you go.
Look at you.
Look at you. This was spoiled to me, but
Sucks.
when Nadhya and I were watching this, we were no longer recording our reactions, and I really wish that we had been, because the way Nadhya lost her shit, it was so, and I was like, I was experiencing it through her because I already knew. I was like, yes, right, oh my God, it's crazy, right?
I was hyped. I was so hyped. More queer Bridgertons, baby.
Woo!
More and more. And under a Lady Whistledown voiceover, we get Colin and Penelope having a lovemaking scene where Penelope is on top.
Get it. And this has been part of her character arc, right? Seeing her again come into her power. figuratively and literally.
Ay, ay, ay.
And I love how that communicates her evolution. And sadly, very sadly, we only get 20 seconds of
You're
this
the most.
clip. Not nearly enough. We needed to see more of that for them. Again, because even their dance, after Colin has his big speech, they have this dance.
You don't linger on them during their dance.
This moment where they're reconnecting passionately for the first time as a married couple needed more screen time. As the viewer, you also want that reconnection for them. You want to experience that reconnection for them.
Next, we see that Cressida is packed up into a very sad looking carriage and she is leaving Mayfair looking very forlorn, presumably going to Wales with Aunt Joanna because none of her fucking plans worked. We see Eloise as she's preparing to leave the Bridgerton home. Benedict and Eloise meet in the hallway. Benedict declares that he will miss her. It's like a very tender moment between them that I love very much. Eloise announces that she'll only be gone until next year because, quote, "Do you think Mama will let me miss her masquerade ball?" Unquote.
Ooh, yo,
Ding,
when
ding,
I
ding.
heard this, I was like, yes, here it is.
I'm so ready.
We only got to wait 2 years.
Stop. Ding, ding, ding. Benofi, baby. For those of us who have read Benedict's book, we all know it starts with a masquerade ball.
Yeah.
We don't know if next season's going to be Benedict's season. I mean, I kind of feel like they're setting it up for it to be.
Yeah.
Eloise is definitely not ready for romance. Benedict, he's kind of in the middle, but the whole foreshadowing of, I feel like the next thing I learn is going to be the most important thing I've ever learned in my life. And then the masquerade ball thing, I'm hype about that. They embrace and Eloise scampers off. She's super excited. She's optimistic. You can tell that she's really hoping to find more of herself in Scotland. She's leaving behind a pensive Benedict. Back outside of the Bridgerton home, everyone who is present is saying goodbye to the travelers. Francesca, Eloise, John Sterling, Michaela Sterling. Eloise and Penelope have a very sweet goodbye where Penelope's kind of tearing up and they hug, as do Francesca and Lady Bridgerton. It's an emotional parting. And over this scene, because we've gotten a bunch of Lady Whistledown voiceover here that I just didn't go into in too much detail, but Lady Whistledown signs off with a simple goodbye.
She does. Well, she kind of apologizes to the Ton in a way.
Yeah.
And when she's making that apology, they show Cressida's face and finally signs off as this is this last time she'll be writing as Lady Whistledown and writes goodbye.
We cut to an epilogue
Yeah.
where we see the three Featherington sisters cooing over three babies of very similar ages. As we predicted, Penelope had the boy who will inherit the Featherington title and estates.
And you can tell by the sizes of the babies that Penelope and Colin's son is maybe 2 or 3 months younger than his cousins.
So do with that information what you will.
Yeah, no. So she did get pregnant on the first time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just batshit crazy. Lady Portia says she expects the Featherington granddaughters will, quote, marry very well, unquote. Philippa says, quote, I think little Philomena, Dios mío, I think little Philomena will one day become a great writer without any need of a husband, end quote.
I loved hearing Philippa say that.
Okay, feminist icon.
Because it calls back to in the beginning of the season when she said the first thing she was going to do as lady of the house was get rid of all Penelope's books. And here now you see how that has turned around. And also something that we pointed out earlier today, Nadhya and I were talking, is how Philomena sounds so similar to filament. What's inside of a light bulb? And this episode is called Into the Light.
There's red string all over this cork board. So Colin chimes in, quote, it certainly runs in the family. I wouldn't have been able to finish my book without the help of her auntie Penelope, end quote. Barf.
Why barf?
Barf because I'm a hater. Because I'm just like, ugh, it feels lazy. You're telling me everything. And I know that I famously ask movies to tell and not show me, but like this, it's lazy.
No. When I heard that, I was happy. And then at the same time, was like, oh, would have loved to see that.
Yep.
Would have loved to see that.
Lots of things. A lot of the Bridgertons are at the Featherington home, which is something that we like haven't seen.
Ever.
And Gregory, sitting on the sofa in the Featherington drawing room, announces that Colin's book is actually good. And Hyacinth runs into the drawing room with a handful of copies of Lady Whistledown's Society papers. And in the voiceover, kind of over this scene, Julie Andrews' voice transforms into Nicola Coughlan's voice, and we hear yours truly, Penelope Bridgerton.
Oh, I love that for her.
I hated this.
Why did you hate it?
I didn't hate that she's Penelope Bridgerton or whatever. That was fine. It was cute. I don't hate the show. I like the show. This season was deeply not it for me.
This season was very frustrating.
Yeah.
100%.
I know you, among them, everyone loves to talk smack because season 2 is like so toxic and it's fucked up. There are lots of things about season 2 that I do not like, and I discuss them when we recap season 2.
Yeah.
But I think there were choices made there that were good, like character choices that were good, plot choices that were good, pacing choices that were good, like directorial choices that were good. And season 3 feels like they took 2 separate seasons and tried to mash them into one.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I have yet to see it from episode 1
to last,
through 8.
I don't have the patience right now. I genuinely think I have to give it like a few weeks or like a month
to go back to it.
Because even rewatching episode 8 to do my notes,
You were just mad.
I was mad because at least when I watched it initially, I was like, I don't know what's coming next. The novelty is exciting. I want to see how this works out. Then I knew how it worked out, and I'm watching it again, and I have even less patience for this somehow. Even knowing how shit works out, I was like, and I'm more annoyed.
Because when you're watching it for the first time, again, like you're at the edge of your seat. You can't wait to see how it all works out. It all works out. I mean, for me, this ending felt satisfying. Like this last bit. And then you're left with that and you're like, okay. My qualms overall were with some of the production choices, right? And the editing and some of the writing, like you've heard us talk about a lot. It needed a good overall edit. The makeup and costume department had some big hits in the beginning of the season. But somewhere it got messy and then just had some really big misses for me. And when they missed, it was enough to distract from the story. And that's not what you want. You're trying to enhance the story. You're trying to continue with the storytelling. You're not trying to distract the viewer from the story it's trying to tell. Luke's wig team needs to be dismantled. The reshoots were so distracting because of how obvious his wig and makeup was. They did not do a good job with the continuity of these reshoots, and it made me annoyed and it was distracting. I can't even enjoy the scene because I'm focused on his wig. Outside of all of that, I loved the finale. In this epilogue, it gave me everything I would have hoped for Penelope and Colin. Penelope continues to write successfully. Colin publishes his book with her as his editor. I wish so much in my heart to have been able to see that actually take place as character and relationship development for both of them. It was such a disservice to not delve deeper into Colin's writing and her involvement in it. We needed to see more of his character arc, more of him coming into himself as well as Penelope. That was happening simultaneously for the both of them. They only focused on Penelope's really. Anyway, however, I loved the Featherington women, and watching them break cycles and heal as a family was such a beautiful arc to me. I love seeing Penelope as the cycle breaker for her family, and seeing as her family began to embrace her, they also started to embrace themselves and began to see more possibilities for themselves and their family, right? And their future generation, just like we saw Philippa hoping that her daughter could be a writer and would not have to rely on a man. That was beautiful. I really enjoyed seeing that. Colin and Penelope's story, I love their development arc from the beginning, right? It made sense to me. It felt realistic. When we did our recap of season 1 and 2, it was so nice to catch the nuances in all of their interactions. Colin's slow realization of his romantic feelings for Penelope and watching that evolve, to me, was chef's kiss, and made sense for like the guy who's been absorbed with his own self-actualization, right? He in his gap years, right? Not noticing what's right in front of him. That made sense to me for Colin's story. her resignation, even at the end with courting Debling and all of that, that made sense in how she fully decided to just move on from this crush. It wasn't reciprocated by attaching herself to somebody who gave her some attention and some time, even if it was not for the best of reasons, right? And I will for sure be rewatching this season for their story. I can see myself fast forwarding through some parts to get to like Colin and Penelope parts. I can't wait to watch from 1 through 8. After watching this season and after watching their press tour, I've become like a solid Nicola and Luke fan. Like I would watch them in anything at this point. They're good people. I'm excited to continue to support them on the shit that they do. All right, sisters. So that was our recap on Bridgerton season 3. Episode 7 and 8. Nadhya, could you tell me, did you have maybe a favorite part, a favorite episode?
Part 1 was definitely my favorite. Part 1, the first 4 episodes, I liked the best.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite episode from part 1?
Maybe episode 4. I would have to watch it again, as unbiased as I could be, so I need a little bit of time. I would have to watch it again. Favorite side story was initially Cressida's side story because I had a lot of hope for where they were going to take her character. Even knowing what I knew from the book and that they would likely follow some of the bigger plot points from the book, I could still see her being sympathetic. And I was wrong.
Yeah.
They took what could have been like a really interesting redemption arc and all over it.
I'm hoping it might come back in season 4.
It definitely will. I just don't know how.
I'm with you on episode 4. Episode 4 is a gem, especially with the carriage scene and the ending with the proposal. My favorite, I would say, though, is episode 2, the moon ball, where you start to see the wheels turning for Colin. It's also where the Featheringtons are the funniest. It's where we get...
it sets himself wet.
Yes.
So good.
We also get a great line from Dankworth. Like, I think of Prudence as a bonbon. Delicate and oh so agreeable. That shit set me. This is also the episode that ends with their kiss.
In the garden.
You start seeing a bit of jealousy from Colin when she's seeing Penelope like talking to other dudes that are making her laugh. And he's like, oh, I don't think I like how that's playing out. So I would say my favorite is episode 2, then definitely episode 4. Favorite storyline or character for me in part 1 was Cressida. I shared your same sentiment. And then in part 2, it became the Featherington sisters and Portia. I love breaking generational trauma and cycles. So when we last covered season 2, right? Going into season 3 without having watched it, we talked about like some of the things we hoped to see in season 3. So these were some of the things we mentioned we wanted to see in season 3. I'm interested to know how you feel about them now. One plot point we wanted to see more of in season 3 was we wanted to see more Will and Alice Mondridge. How do you feel about what you got from them?
I like them. I want more of them, but I want more of them that's significant to the plot.
Yes.
That's not pointless building. That's not building to nothing.
Yes. We saw them gain a title, and that was cool. We saw how that affected their dynamic. I think an interesting point of view. I'm hoping, like you said, to see them in season 4 and be more active participants in the main plot. One of the things we pointed out that we wanted to see more of in season 3, we wanted to see more queer representation. And bitch, happy Pride, bitches. This episode might not release in Pride Month still, but happy Pride all the time. And one thing, Nadhya, that you did want to see this season, you wanted to see Theo Sharp.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. No, we did not get to see Theo Sharp.
I even just wanted to see like an acknowledgement. Like,
something.
Remember how in season 2, Anthony finds like an advertisement pamphlet of Sienna Rosso, and throws it into the fire.
There, that's it. You're done. I'm over you. Beautiful.
Well done. And we get nothing. No residual wrap up from Theo Sharp.
I mean, but was that significant though?
No, but knowing that Eloise hadn't had any experiences like that before, I think so. Even if it was like her taking one of the books and
that's something that reminded her of him. I feel you. Yeah, no, we got nothing. So what do you hope to see in season 4?
You're asking me for real?
Yeah.
I hope it's Benedict's season.
Yeah.
I hope it's Sophie. I hope there's one scene near the end. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. I'm not going to spoil it. I hope that scene doesn't fucking happen because it's fucking stupid.
I think it's safe to say they're not going to stick to the books.
And thank God. And I want to see, and Bridgerton's probably not going to do this. This is not the slant they usually take, but Benedict's book, one of the reasons that it's probably my favorite of the Bridgerton books, and I understand like the premise is seedy. What happens between him and Sophie at the beginning is like seedy and yucky. I'm not saying that I co-sign that. What I do co-sign about his book is that there's this element of magical realism to it that as a Latin American person who has read some Latin American pieces of literature that love magical realism, I fuck with that super hard.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to see happy Colin and Penelope the way we got to see happy Kate and Anthony this season. I'm excited to see the hilarity between the now 3 Featherington husbands. I think there's some good opportunity for some comedic gold between Dankworth, Finch, and Colin. I think they could be really funny.
I hope they become friends.
I'm very interested to see how that dynamic is going to play out. Mm-hmm. I'm really like annoyed about Cressida's arc, and I need to see her finally get some redemption in season 4. I think that's one of my main things. And I need to see Eloise get humbled. I need to see her humbled.
I absolutely do.
If it's her season, I would be okay with that too. But I think we can't take another season of seeing Benedict aimless. So if it's his season, I want to see her get humbled in the background somewhere. All right, sisters. Final wrap up. New sisters who are here with us, who have joined us for Bridgerton. Typically, when we do our movie wrap-ups and movie discussions, we wrap up by asking, book a show, would our husbands watch this with us? What's our scale from 1 to ardently admiring love? That's inspired by Pride and Prejudice. So let's go. Now that we're done covering the season in its entirety, Nadhya, book her show.
Bitch, it's still gonna be show.
Can I say, like, I'm kind of on the fence with this one?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Because you like this book, like, a bit, yeah.
I like their story. And obviously, the Bridgerton books really only focus on the 2 people that are falling in love. There's not much backstory. So you get a lot of Colin and Penelope. And I just felt that I missed them so much. I missed so much of their story in the show. Specifically seeing them come together and tackle their shit together. And in the book, you get that. So like any moment that I have where I'm like sitting in a waiting room or whatever, I revisit certain chapters in their book. So I'm on the fence with this. So I'm 50-50, and this might be the first time that's happened. Will your significant other watch this with you?
He sure did. He did watch this.
How do you feel about it?
It was kind of the same, where it was like when he watched it the first time, he was like shocked, right? And like, oh, the anticipation of everything happening. And then when I rewatched episode 8, he was just like, ugh.
Aww.
Yeah, he and I were the same that way.
My husband will not touch Bridgerton with a 10-foot pole. He will ask questions though, because he hears us talking about it. On the scale from 1 to ardently admire and love, how do you feel about this season?
It's a 5.
5. Straight right in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to split mine between season overall and pollen. Season overall, this is a generous 7 out of 10. And I brought that up from a 6 out of 10 because of the Featherington plotline. I liked seeing a lot of moments coming full circle. I saw moments with Eloise and Penelope coming full circle. Pollen, for me, I'm a simp. Pollen, for me, gets a 9 out of 10. I love their story. Funny. Generational trauma. We got a bit. We get tons here, right? We get toxic family dynamics, competition within family, right? We got all of that through the Featheringtons. Mm-hmm. Fighting against standard gender roles. I think we saw this in Penelope and Colin's arc. So, sisters, that's our wrap up. That's our recap of Bridgerton season 3. This is the end of our Springerton. Thank you so much for being here. We kicked off Springerton in April, right at the start of spring, to be able to cover all Bridgerton seasons in time for season 3. And we fucking did it. Finally. It took forever, but we did it. We're here. We made it.
I don't think I'll be ready for more Bridgerton until season 4 comes out.
We'll see. I mean, I would love to talk about Queen Charlotte, but we can wait a while. Thank you for hanging with us all Springerton long. If you've joined us recently, I hope you like it around here. And I hope you stay for more unhinged, ultra detailed, sometimes socially conscious, intermittently thirsty, lovingly critical recaps. Next, we will finally be covering The Idea of You with the illustrious Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galatine. It's been too long since he's been mentioned in an episode. OG sisters know it's been long overdue. So stay tuned. Meet us back here so we can break down The Idea of You. So thank you for listening. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, please leave a review anywhere you get your podcast and come find us on Instagram at Sis Flicks Podcast and shoot us an email at sisflickspodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you think. And if you have any suggestions for a movie or show that you would like us to cover in the future. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.